And we're back. It's another Thursday, and we're here.
Yay!
And we got Carl and Donna already in the house here. And that's a
I,
good thing. And Donna, as always, is reminding people don't forget to like and share.
I,
And I
I,
know you have subscribed. Hopefully, we get more subscribers here because I need to be on a bigger subscriber push and everything to that magnitude as well. And hopefully, we had a pretty decent week here. I mean, it's a lot of stuff to kind of sort of talk about, I guess. I've been trying to keep up with the whole thing about with the geek culture type stuff, but I guess I'm the only one that's like a game show head because I'm still kind of reeling from the loss of Wink Martindale.
okay.
Wink
And
Martindale passed away last week.
Michael, was it Michael?
No, McMichaels. You talking about
McMichael's
yeah,
died yesterday.
right.
McMichael's died yesterday. So, wasn't he part of the shuffling crew?
Yes,
Or
he
was
was.
I was about to say, I thought I recognized the name. It's like, wasn't he part? I know Mike McMahon was there, but it was like he was there as well. He's part of that shuffling crew. So yeah, I was like, oh man,
Hey,
that's sad
you
because
getting
we.
names mixed up here because I was like, what was McMahon's name? First name?
I can't
You
remember.
got it was Steve Mongo McMichaels
Yes.
that died,
Ooh, hold on. I'm
and I got an
getting.
echo.
Okay, it's. I thought it was me at first. It's like.
No, no, no. I heard it, but it was like somebody playing in the background. Somebody was playing a feed in the background. Uh, and then he has his backup quarterback was Steve. No, that was his. Yeah, it was Steve Fuller. Was his backup? Was
Yeah.
dang, what is McMahon's uh first name? I don't remember McMahon's first name.
I know it's not Joe.
No, I'm not going to think too hard
We're
on it.
not going to kill
I'm not going to
ourselves.
think too hard on it because it's like if I start thinking about that, it's like um, I'm going to start bringing up people like Mike Singletary, Wilbur Otis, and all these other ones that people don't remember from the '85 Bears.
Are we
Well,
talking about sports balls?
Yes,
yeah. Sorry. In the 80s, the Bears had a serious shot at the Super Bowl.
actually, they won 84, 85, and it
Yeah.
should have been a dynasty. But when they won in '85, the main component of that team left. And that main component went from Chicago to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And that main component's name was Buddy Ryan, the defensive coordinator that got on that championship.
Well, the coach acting like, kind of a dictator at that point. I know a lot of players, they were demoralized by that, but then also the coach was not particularly kind either. And instead of building them up, he was more tearing them down. Because I remember just hearing reports of things not being good behind the scenes with
That's why I
him and
love hearing the behind the scenes from Jim Harbaugh. When Jim Harbaugh finally came to the Bears up under Ditka and all the arguments that him and Ditka had.
yeah, Dicker was you would have think 2 in a row would have, yes, he wanted to keep the team strong, but tearing them down, being adversarial
Mhm.
with people doesn't build the team.
No, it's a different generation in football too. He came from a different generation, so
That's
it wasn't like they're not used to it, but it didn't help in the generation that he was coaching.
yeah. So and like I said, as someone who was a fan primarily because we had won and they did the little shuffle thing, and I thought, oh, it's so cute and adorable. We have a team that wins, as opposed to What is it? Continental Bank did the commercial where what was it? The not Sears Tower, the Hancock Center became a bird, and it was like, and it was talking about things in Chicago, and then when our sports teams, to suggest our sports teams were crap.
See, now you
So
want me to get into this. See, you making me get into the factoids about the Super Bowl Shuffle, the original Super Bowl Shuffle.
we don't
Factoids about
have
it.
to. In fact, I wanted to make an announcement. I found out there will be a free comic book day this year,
Mm-hmm.
May the 3rd. So we will at least have this year. Don't know what's going to happen, and I'm happy because I do know a lot of these companies. They plan out their FCD day stuff. 6 months or so ahead to
And
make
I
sure
failed
that.
again.
Hmm?
I failed again.
They plan it out way ahead of time. It's not something that they do last minute. Some of them actually put serious thought into what those issues are going to be. I always love the Color of Marvel issues because it highlights a lot of the the people of color who are characters, but also the people of color who are creators. I actually got to see Afro Richardson, who I adore the hell out of now these days. I'm trying to think, before the pandemic, I think she was featured. She did a storm or something like that in the book, and I was like, oh my god, yes, she's so cool. So I am happy. I don't my year is not quite as dark as it was turning out to be, because it's like there will be a free comic book day, and if I'm correct, it's May the 3rd.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's May the 3rd. So, and I will double check the date, but we will be, I will be grabbing my little chickadees, and we will be going, you know, because I so want to, it's just, it's a family thing now. And I would at least like to have one last so I can take pictures and, make a little page out of it that I can put on I can use as a background for my computer and remember. I've, I've been taking my kids to Free Comic Book Day for at least a good 15 years now. So
yeah, my oldest and I go every year. It's our dad's making me leave the house with him day. So
that was how it was for them originally. But and I didn't know Diamond. I didn't know that was a Diamond promotion thing. I just thought it was our thing.
Oh boy, that was not called for, but I have to laugh about that one.
Of course you do.
Oh boy, but no, I haven't really participated in Free Comic Book Day just to go and just grab free stuff, because to me that it never really served a purpose. And then I also got spoiled because of having getting my books, my normal like week to week books, pulled from a different city. They normally pull the ones that I want anyway for Free Comic Book Day, so I get them. So it really wasn't one of those things that going to an actual store for Free Comic Book Day is going to be beneficial to me. The other way around would be if I could get my telling gear to actually have spare stories already done and ready to go and print it up and be like, hey, any store wants my Free Comic Book Day thing, here it is, just let me know.
I'm gonna bake a loaf of banana bread, take one of the mini posters, and a copy of the comic, because I told James that once it was done, I would have a copy. So I'm gonna take those to James with the banana bread, which I'm gonna slice and give them to him with my blessings, and go up, let John pick what he wants, see if there's anything I might find interesting, and you know we'll come home.
That's a dangerous thing.
What, taking him banana bread? I've taken him
No, no,
banana
no,
bread.
no, 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 no. No. You and John trying to find something that you guys want. That could be a dangerous thing, because next thing you know, it's like, how do we get this $250 bill?
No, he will. he's limited to what's available, that the FC, what they have available for that day.
Oh, okay. So only the free comic book day stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so he, it's, and usually like if they'll have a Sonic or a title that they'll have like a Sonic something or title that he's already kind of into,
Mm-hmm.
and so he'll pick those things. And then sometimes they have additional stuff like little posters. They also James also last year he had a couple of indie publishers there,
Mm-hmm.
so they had their books. They were selling them for $1. So we bought one of their books and they signed them for us a few years back. They had an artist there. And so I got John a picture, and that made him very happy. So I never know what he'll like, but if I have extra money to maybe get him a Peanuts book,
Mm-hmm.
I might. But if not, we'll just get the freebie stuff and then, truck over to like Subway or something, or that place Morty's, because Morty's ain't bad. You know, Morty's is the one that's on the cover.
That's that's the delicatessen, right?
Yeah, Morty's Deli isn't bad. So,
Mm.
if it's warm enough, maybe we'll go grab some ice cream cones from Morty's or something. But it'll be our morning.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's gotten to where you go. I'm sorry, allergy season is upon us, and my nose is just, it's I can't stop it. Because the alternative is to take an anti-allergy pill and be like, for the rest,
I know that feeling too well.
But
And it's not the worst. It's not the worst end for me because the worst end is when it gets really bad. I become very light sensitive. Therefore, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be on camera. I couldn't even have these lights and stuff on.
Mm-hmm.
but last few times we've gone, we got there a little early, and then you get to say hi to other people who are also showing up and waiting for the store to open, and so it becomes this sort of comic book community thing, which I think is really nice. You get to meet other fans, even if you don't talk anymore. At least for that moment, it's a nice little vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
I am crazy that way. You can send
You're
your
not
son. I
crazy.
can drag him with me if you'd like.
You're not crazy. You want to know? You want to know why I know you're not crazy? Because if you were me, maybe I would say a decade ago, I would be that type of person that would convince James, like, "Hey, James, let me go ahead and have a signing on Free Comic Book Day."
I
I have done
thought
signings in his stores, and we
I
have brought people in. We have brought a lot of people in
I
because we
had
were
thought
advertising
about it.
everything about that.
I thought about it, and I thought, and what I will do is give him, like, I will give him the book. I will give him the mini poster. I'll tell him what my inventory is. If he likes the book and he thinks it's worth having me there for an afternoon to talk to people, I'll do that. I will happily do that. But I don't want to come off as, I got my book now, you got to let me sell it in your store. It's like, nope, take your time, go read it,
Hmm.
decide if you like it or not. Do you like the art? Let me know. Because I also have to find another printer now.
Hmm.
So,
Oh,
and
printers are easy.
yeah,
Print.
there are two here in Chicago that I want to check out, one of which does comics and zines.
Well,
So,
yeah, we haven't really talked about it, but everybody that I know is not within the state, but it's like the closest one that I know of is Comics Wellspring, which is in Michigan.
okay. Well, Michigan's not bad. They're
Mhm.
like, in fact, our border with Michigan, I guess, just increased. We pushed it,
Somewhat in a weird way.
pushed Indiana away from Michigan. I'm sorry.
People probably don't remember when I first started out. I used to go through this one printing spot in Indiana called
Oh,
Rink Printing, but Rink Printing stopped doing print on demand. You have to go. Now they forcing you to do print runs. So
Chris,
unless you're doing like 5,000, they're not taking your order.
Christine Griggs was telling me about the college she works at. They have an offset printer,
Mhm.
and they have an offset print system so that they could do it there. I just haven't had a chance to sit down and contact her and say, what's the what's the least amount I can do? What would it cost me to say get 50 or 100 books done? And can they do, if I sent her what the mini posters look like, because a lot of people have liked the mini posters. And it's like, well, I could sign, if they don't want the book, they can at least buy the poster. I'll sign it. They
Mhm.
can, whatever. But like I said, I want to look into things because I also have to look at what's sustainable,
Mhm.
you know.
And that's one of the things that I don't really like about everybody. It's like, oh, you have to go offset. It's like, don't you understand the overhead of inventory? You have to have some place to store thousands of books.
Yeah.
Thousands of books take up a lot of room. It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, I got this corner over here. I could put, 500 or 600 books there. It's like, no, you're looking at thousands of
Mhm.
books.
And I've got no place for that. I've got boxes of books that Amazon didn't print right that I can't just throw in the garbage.
Hmm.
I have to find a recycling place that will shred them
Mhm.
and then get rid of them. And that's going to cost me, So it's not like I can just run and go, hey, can you shred my books for free?
Hint, hint, wink, wink. I still got error copies of Primetime Saturday Night #1.
Okay. So no, I don't feel so bad.
So pretty much, I'm saying it in that aspect here because comic book collectors, they're like, "Oh, you got an error edition? I want that." That's like, well, I'm going to release something that's error prone.
Mhm.
And the way they did and this is not a comic, it's a book manuscript.
Hmm.
And there were things like I know I did it correctly, but for some reason their print reader, they can do Kindle well enough, but for some reason their print reader is having all sorts of things. And it's like I now have to shrink the physical size of the comic again just to see if their reader can read it without going, it's too big for the bleed. And I did the whole, forget the bleed stuff. And there's like, no, it's too big. It's like, it fits the page. No, no. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
you people are just really trying because there's no white. The background of the page is black.
It wouldn't matter.
You know, well, for some
But then
reason,
again, I don't print. I don't print through Amazon.
Amazon
So,
is throwing, and it's like maybe if I put a little white border, just a
Mhm.
couple of centimeters around the edge, that would make them happy.
I don't know. But then again, I haven't put any new books out there on Comixology.
you know.
Speaking of which,
Ooh,
thank you, people. We got we getting orders from the website. So
oh,
that's why I said thank
cool.
you. So that was one of the things that made me happy since C2E2. It's like we're now seeing more and more orders directly to the website. So that's been making me happy
Mhm.
Oh,
with the fact of,
congratulations.
of the low turnout in sales.
That at least, and so at least talking to people has helped because sometimes there are people who they only, especially because in the past they have been, you've heard about people getting robbed
Hmm.
at cons. So there are a lot of people now who don't. I mean, folks would show up with like $400 or $500 in cash. Now they try not to show up with any more cash than they absolutely have to.
Hmm.
So and things being what they are, people, I know people who they work all year just to go to that one con.
Hmm.
And so and sometimes they find stuff and they want to get it now, but they know it's just they've already spent so much money. And by the time they hit you, it's like, oh shoot. Because I believe I actually did talk to one person who was like, I'm out of money. And I've already used what I can use on my card. And it's like, here's my card. You can get
Hmm.
the Kindle edition for $4.99. When we
Mhm.
work out, keep track on my site. Um, and whatnot. And when we work out the print situation, I'll get back to you if you want a print copy. So so I will leave that open for people who I met at C2E2. If they reach out to me on my website and say, hey, you know what, I saw that, but I don't want the Kindle, I want an actual print edition. It's like, okay, I've got one, this is what the book costs, and this is what it'll cost me to ship. If you're still willing, fine, I will run my butt over to Hyde Park and ship that puppy out, because I want to make sure that it goes out through a post office I can trust.
That's another story that we're not getting into here.
Yeah, but it's just like, okay, I'm not going to charge you extra for the bus fare there and back, but just know it's going to cost. It ain't cheap to go and mail this off. I can't just walk to my post office. But for people who, if they reach out to me and say, hey, I got your bookmark, or I got your card at C2E2, I'm this person, we talked, you took my picture, I'm willing to go that extra step for them, because they were nice enough to let me take their picture, and they took my card and stuff. And it's like, okay, fine, I will, and I'll say, hey, would you be willing if I set up a mailing list? And, I will probably not bug you. At most, maybe once every couple of months, as things progress, to say, hey, we've got, I've got this many new videos up, or we're this far I'm this far along in this book and this far along in that book. But I don't want to, I get some people who, you get on their mailing list and it's like every other week. It's like
But that's the type of engagement that they trying to get. And I got to the point where it's maybe like once a month or once every 2 months I might say something, because I don't have everything to say every month. And at one time I was hyping up the videos that we do here, like with these episodes of Comic Book Spectrum. I was, saying, here, if you missed these, you can look at them here. But now they're on the website. Everything is pretty much on the website. So if you go to our website, it's like, you missed the episode of Comic Book Spectrum, just go to our media page. It's right there. It's in some type of order where you can go and catch every episode of Front of Desk and Comic Book Spectrum. It's just easier that way.
yeah,
So what is left to talk about in a newsletter, other than, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm thinking about, here's a new image that I just did, or here's a new sketch card that I just did, or something to that magnitude. You don't need to do that every week.
Yeah, I'm thinking of going back to blogging, but the blogs will be maybe once every few weeks, just because looking at, okay, I'm going to be working on book 2 of the comic, plus the next project, which is going to be the illustrated novel. I want to start working out the outline for, at the very least, as well as get some pages done. So it's like, yeah, that's a lot of work. Plus, what you and I were talking about before we got on camera.
Mhm.
So it's like, I just don't have enough time. And I know there are people who hand that off to an assistant to say, oh, you take care of that. And it's like, and I don't want to hire a marketing company, because that's not me. That's not really me. You're not going to capture me. I'm sorry. I would rather say, hey, maybe once every 3 months, and if and maybe depending if I can get enough people following me, maybe I'll think about a Patreon page. And then once a month, I will do a piece of art that you can download for free, or depending on what tier you're on. I'm still thinking about that. It's like, because I have subscribers, but I got like 15 subscribers, and now they're offering memberships. So you not only have to have so many subscribers to get monetized, you also have to have so many members
Mhm.
to get monetized. And that's like, really? Y'all keep moving them goalposts.
Mhm.
Because people been finding shortcuts, especially like with YouTube and everything. People been finding shortcuts. People will buy subscribers and everything. That's the reason why they said you have to have so many watch hours and have so much of this and so much of that. And to be quite honest, it's easy to get the other stuff, but the subscribers is the hard thing. But the watch hours and everything is not an easy thing to do. You have to
Yeah.
have something like really that goes viral to be like on the upper echelon of watch hours. I mean, before the old channel got shut down, I had the watch hours. I just didn't have the subscribers. And even with that being said, having the watch hours is just like people, people watch, but it's just like they watch for a reason. They're not watching mainly because of you're popular or anything. You're giving them good content. So I'd rather focus on that and not be overburdened about how I'm going to get new subscribers who may not be around to see everything. But that's kind of like the thing. That's kind of like the thing of that catch-22. But I'm going to try to change the topic around a little bit here because I want to see what everybody's looking forward to reading over the next couple of weeks here, because with new comic book day coming around, and then I believe there's supposed to be a couple of new titles that they're supposed to be launching, or at least rumored to be launching. I'm just wondering what's going on your guys' reading list.
Um, Comics wise, um, I haven't looked up any comics, and I'm still on that. I keep going every time I go to Jules. I look in that rack to see if Spy versus Spy is still there, and it is. So it's like that's my wish thing. It's like, oh please let me get that grant money because I'm running. I will walk to Jewel and get that damn Spy versus Spy book because I want it. I wants it. I wants it. It's my precious. Um, I have not seen a lot new yet. That it's like because sometimes there are things I get, and I've got to remember to ask Clyde. I want to get the Cryptid series
Mm-hmm.
because I really like the Cryptid and the Gojira, the Gojira one. Those are two I would like to look into. But it's like, okay, what I will probably have to do is, I'm still, because they're still making me jump through hoops for this grant. It's like I got approved for $1,000 grant. I've already spent that money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to tell them, hey, I've already spent well over that and I need to start paying people back. And it's like, and they're like, well, you have to have this and you have to, and I've done all these hoops and I finally got my supplier number. And it's like, oh, you got a supplier number? You need a vendor number. And I'm like, well, how the hell do I get that? And it's like, oh, we assign, now that you have a supplier number, we'll assign you one. I'm like, well, how long is that supposed to take? Oh, 3 to 4 weeks. So, and from the time in which I got all that stuff done online and stuff, that's either the end of this week or the end of next week, just to get the number. And then once the number is get in, then they can go to the person who writes the checks, give them that information and say, hey, she's been approved for XYZ. You need to send a payment to her bank. Because they got the routing, they not only have my account number, but they also have the routing number so that they can do it electronically. But it's like, this is a local arm of a federal organization. So I'm still not going to see that money before June. Because
you're up there like, June, hurry up. June, hurry up. June, hurry up.
Because how the Fed likes to pay. They want you to hurry up and pay down when you owe them something. But when it's the other way around, it's like, we'll get it to you eventually.
Oh, we gotta wait a couple more weeks here because there's going to be another interest payment that we're going to collect here, and we want to make sure that we get that extra $500 from that $4,000 that we going to loan you.
Remember that old saying? When I was a little girl in the hood, there used to be this saying, so long as I owe you, you'll never be broke.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what it feels like.
Are you sure they didn't tell you June of next year?
Don't do that to me. Don't do that. I got money I need to pay people back.
I've been waiting for 3 years now for the federal government to at least pay attention to the money they owe me.
Oh man. I can't even, and it's funny though, because last year I filed my taxes. A couple of months later, I filed my taxes in April of last year. What was it, June, July? They sent me a letter. Hey, you didn't apply for the EIC, the tax credits, like because I don't have a dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, you couldn't get that earned income credit unless you had a dependent. So I just was like, well, y'all, I ain't got a dependent. Y'all ain't gonna let me apply for it anyway. So, sucks
I'll
to
be
be
your
me.
dependent.
No, you can't, because then I got to explain to other governmental agencies. And then they will cut my SNAP benefits. And then I can't feed my family. So,
Hey, I understand about that.
you know,
I'm trying to get my disability approved for the past 3 years, so I understand
oh my
all
goodness.
about everything they cut. They're like, oh well, you didn't dot this I properly. You need to start the application again.
I
No.
finally quit bothering with the VA because they every time it looked like I should have been allowed disability, they kept moving the goalposts, and then it was like, hey, did you serve in Kaplan June from this time? And it's like, yeah, I was there in the 80s. I was there in 1982. I was in Camp Lejeune. And so, and since coming back from the Marines is when all of a sudden I started having the first the ulcer and then the IBS problems and all of that. And suddenly I couldn't drink regular milk. There was, when I came home, I started getting a lot of upper GI difficulties. But, and at first they were like, oh, well, that whole thing, that was, you had to have served over in Iraq or Iran. You had to have served over in Afghanistan. It's like, well, fine, screw you. Then Biden said, signed the PACT Act, and I went and they said, oh, but you need to have a stage 4 cancer. And I'm like, and then it hit me. It's like, oh, I get it. I could get full medical back and all of that, because you figure I've got stage 4 cancer. I'm not going to live that long.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at, yeah, you'd have to give me 100%, but you figure I'd be dead in 6 months anyway.
Right.
So, yes, y'all, that's our government at work. And I hate to say it, this was before the Mango Mussolini took office. Okay.
Well, yes. And it's, I don't know. I thought I did the right thing by hiring a lawyer to help me with all of it. But then I realized, oh, the lawyer gets 25% of whatever I get. So they're going to draw this out as long as they can.
Yeah.
So
because when they first came out with the PACT Act, I actually had a couple of law firms, because I had been reaching out to the VA, who then reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, how much of this do you get? And they didn't want to discuss how much they were looking to get. And it's like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take anywhere between 35 to 50% of that, you'll give me that, you'll get me that lovely big couple of $100,000 back payment, but you're going to take up to half that in legal fees. And that's because they changed the law. It used to be that you could get an attorney to sue the VA. They're one of the few governmental offices you could actually sue. But the lawyer who signed on to do it had to do it pro bono.
Mm.
And then I think about 10 years or so ago, they started changing the rules so that lawyers could charge you.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it was like, oh, you win your case, you only have to pay them this. which and they would give you, it was like a couple of grand at best. Now, you
Mhm.
know, you win your case, and they can, like, it's kind of like that Brandeis situation from Bleak House,
Mhm.
where, running through Bleak House is a story of a house, of a family. The poor Brandeis is fighting the rich Brandeis over an inheritance that's several millions of pounds. And it's been, and in the book, it's taken 10, it takes 10 years. They've been for 10 years. And what happens is, their lawyer, this side's lawyer shows up, that side's lawyers, we're saying we want to submit this, and the other's done, we're submitting that. And the court and the judge would go, okay, and then they would walk out and leave. And they would never spend more than 5 or 10 minutes either side discussing this case.
Mhm.
And at the end, the case was finally decided for the side of the poor Brandeises.
No money
And
left.
what happened was, the joke, Dickens' joke in the book, is that the law, about, what is it? It was decided, and the news got out throughout the city, and people were like, "Yay! The right Brandeises won. We gonna quit being dirt poor." About an hour or so after this makes, town criers and stuff all over the place, it's making the news. The lawyers then go before the judge. My lord, we the lawyers would like to present something. And the judge is like, what? He goes, we think as the lawyers, we should get all that money.
Broke
And the
them.
judge said yes.
And because again, they broke them.
So after 10 years, and people having their very existence, women not being able to marry because while they were considered of the right class, they didn't have a dowry and couldn't offer a living, because back in the day, the upper middle classes, that's how they married. The man married into the woman's family. The woman's family would pay a dowry, and give the father would give the couple a living, so many pounds per month or per year to exist on.
I didn't get a dowry. That's not fair.
You gotta talk to you gotta go talk to folks. But so you had this decade of all this stuff, and people going through pain, and in the end, the lawyers ran off with all the money. And the way it's going now, that's kind of, for veterans, that's kind of the feel, because it's like, great, you're gonna run off with up to half this money. In the meantime, I'm in debt.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm lucky, and this isn't going to push me forward financially, it's just, if I'm lucky, it'll just let me pay off some of this medical debt, because that's also usually a part of a lot of people's cases. They've accrued a lot of medical debt because they couldn't get care at the VA. And it's sad, because when I separated from the Marines, we were given a promise: if you had an honorable discharge, if you had an honorable discharge, no
Don't
max.
taxi.
But the agreement was, if you had an honorable discharge, the VA would take care of you. If you got sick, you would get medical care. If you needed to be hospitalized, if there was if once you were identified as a veteran and you had to go in for something, once you were stabilized, you could be transferred to a VA health facility where you would get your treatment for no additional charge, and you would receive all of whatever you needed. And then around the time of the Gulf War, they got up and said, hey, remember all that stuff we told you? We weren't really serious. If you haven't gotten this much time in, yeah, you have an honorable discharge and everything. But, if you don't have this much time in, you can't get any of those services now.
Just like the no money down for HSA. HFA,
Hmm.
because I tried to do that and they kept giving me the runaround because I didn't go into the theater of war, but I met all the other requirements. They was like, oh no, you qualify for the veterans home loan,
Yeah,
but you don't qualify for no money down. I feel like, okay,
but that was
explain
the
to
core.
me,
That's the
explain to me
core
how
of
I
it.
don't qualify when it specifically states this, and this. And then it got down to, it's like, well, your orders were not specific enough. It's like, so you have to, and they was up there, it's like, well, we have to see your order. So I gave them all my orders and everything, where I went from reserve to active duty to cadet status in the Air Force. And they were up there, it's like, well, we need to see your discharge from going from reserve to active, and then the discharge from active to cadet. Now I had the one from reserve to active, but active to cadet was what was missing. And I was like, they never gave me one because they would consider it an extension of my contract, because I never left active duty status. And when you become a cadet in the United States Air Force Academy, you are still considered active
Active
duty.
duty, and
Hmm.
it should be listed in your SRB. It should have
And
been somebody, some clerk screwed it, because they're supposed to, every time you make necessary, you make a change like that, they're supposed to put that in your SRB, your service record book, your
they did.
service,
That's
and
that's
they
the thing. They
and
did, but they up here like, we need to see the actual status where you was discharged. It's like, there was no discharge. It was a continuation,
yeah, the only discharge paper you would have had would have been your DD 214,
which I had,
and they didn't want to take that. Oh,
because the DD 214 only specified when I was a cadet, was when I was a cadet. So that's the other problem with all of this. And it's like, I've been through all of these different, veterans programs, all of these different vets reps. Everybody's up here. It's like, well, you need to contact the Air Force to get, X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, I'm going to do that because I gave you everything that I have, because I kept every last one of my orders. Most people don't even do that. I kept every last one of my orders, and I showed you and I proved to you that I qualified. It's like, well, yeah, we could give you your veteran certificate, but you don't qualify for no money now. It's like,
and that's
why would
what.
I want it? It's like, you forcing me to take a loan and not get what I rightfully deserve. You set everything up for me to get a loan, but the no money down portion of it, you're like, no, you don't qualify that. It's like, it's silly.
Hmm.
There might be a grant program that you might qualify for. I don't know. I'm not going to say, oh, you can qualify for this grant program. I'll have to look into it. Um, there are some grant, there are some FHA grant programs that are connected that may help. I don't know.
Hmm.
But again, it's like, it just shakes my faith, because at that point I just gave up on anything that was kind of like veterans related programs that were meant for us, because up there it's like, well, it's like, you could qualify for the GI Bill. It's like, okay, I tried to use that. Oh, you didn't go to a public school. You have to go to a public school. IIT is a private school, and during that time, IIT was a private school. And then after I graduated and everything, it became public.
Hmm.
This is the thing, folks. Those of us who serve, what they don't tell you is you serve, and then the minute you're done and you need something, they start moving the goalposts so that you would think, oh, under this, and this, I'm covered. And then they get up and say, well, technically, no, you know, because it's like, well, you're a woman and you didn't get to go to this, or yeah, you had this training, but and there's always a but and a why we can't. And after about what I came out in, what was that, 22, so I came out in 83 or so. I just, there's that part where you're like, okay, I'm done. You fight this for like 20 something years, and it's not getting any easier. And then, I had to be hospitalized right before the Gulf War.
Okay, okay, Carl.
Bye.
Bye, Carl. Bye, Donna.
Bye, Donna. You know,
Oh, those battles are no longer. I don't mess with it too much more. As long as I got my veteran certificate to prove that I qualify for HFA, I'm okay. I'm okay, but I'm not going to use it because I was supposed to be guaranteed no money now. They're not going to give it to me. Why am I going to waste my certificate on a loan until I need it?
Mm-hmm.
I was in a hospital when what the thing Freedom or whatever hit,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember suddenly, and I knew the guy who ran the Red Cross office. I had gotten because he was on the campus of the hospital, and he had told me, he said he had an office that was not only, they had a waiting area, it had his office, and then off to the side they had a shower and a closet. So homeless vets, because they would give you, if you had your DD 214, and you come to the VA and they could pull your records and get a DD 214 printed for you.
Mm-hmm.
um, Homeless vets could come, they could take a shower, get some clean clothes, underwear, socks, and whatever. Um, and he would give them a chit so that they could go down to the commissary and eat, so they could at least get one hot, they would limit an individual vet could only get like a hot meal from the commissary. First it was every other day, then it was, once a week, then it was every 2 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
then he said, because it was the Red Cross got in trouble because they were talking about they did this big blood drive. And then I forgot who, somebody busted it that they already had blood reserves. They were
Mm-hmm.
screaming like, "Oh, we don't have enough blood. We don't have enough blood." And then somebody let it out that, "Oh, wait, you've got how many extra millions of gallons of blood in reserve? Why are you doing all of this?" They then got up and said, "No more services for homeless vets."
Mm-hmm.
So they cut his office budget in half, and they moved him to another part of the campus so that he didn't have an office that had a shower and a closet and stuff like that. They were no longer authorized to provide services for homeless vets. They couldn't. First, it was like that, and then it was like, okay, if you still got chits, you can give your chits out until you run out.
Welcome on in, Sean. And he says his VA had housing on campus. So that's
Yeah,
quite nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's getting more and more rare. I mean, here in Chicago, they don't have. Well, it all depends because they have what's called the domiciliary. And I'm talking about the LA, the main one in LA. We had you had two sections of the hospital campus, and there's the big hospital, which was the main building, and then across the road in the Brentwood, you had all the different dormitories for whatever they were hospital, whatever mental illness you had, and then they also had the main chow and what was called the domiciliary, which was, if you had the right paperwork and you were, I think you had to be at least 65 and single, they had housing for veterans. You didn't have to, you could, if you had the right paperwork, you could stay there. Especially if you didn't have any family who could, if you had illnesses, you didn't have family who could take care of you, you needed some assisted care stuff. They had domiciliary, hospital like that had a domiciliary so that you had a place you could stay. You got you had your three hots and a cot. You usually had a room to yourself. And they had primarily a men's wing because, it's only in the last 15 years that they've actually provided real services for female veterans. So, and I think at the time there were no women in the domiciliary; it was all male.
Mm-hmm.
you know. And the thing is you not only could stay in a domiciliary and get your meals on campus, but you got your disability,
Hmm.
and you didn't have to spend a dime.
Yep, because technically you still had your PX that's still there
You,
on campus. So if you needed like towels or anything entertainment wise, or you need to buy like a birthday present for a grandkid, it was right there.
Mhm.
yeah, the main hospital had like its little gift shop that the Red Cross ran as a fundraising thing. But on our side, there was a PX, so that, and it was ran just like a PX on a base. So if you wanted blue jeans or anything, you could get. And because you were a veteran, because every once in a while I get the email from the VA and they'll go, "Hey, why aren't you shopping at the PX?" And it's like, if you were a real person, I'd knock you through a wall, because the nearest PX to us is what
Great
you eat.
Lakes. Great
Yeah,
Lakes.
it's Great friggin' Lakes, you know. That's the better part of a day or
Hmm.
more just to get there.
Mhm.
And then you got to hope that what you have will get you on base. And if you're on base, you have to be careful, because if you are not active duty, it's like, this is, they'll tell you this is where the PX is. Go from here to the PX. Don't stop nowhere in between. Go to the PX, get what you're gonna get, and then when you're done, get your ass off the base.
Oh, it's not like when I was in Colorado, because Colorado was a little bit more lenient to people coming in for the PX, because the PX was always in an isolated spot. So there's only one way in, one way out.
Okay.
The only way you could get lost if you got out of the car and start walking around.
Well, also the PX there, it's like when I was in Okinawa.
Hmm.
Um, we had two PXs. We had our little part of the base and the USO building. There was
Hmm.
kind of a PX for basic things. And when I was stationed in Lejeune, we had that. They would have they would have little pilot stores. So if you needed jeans, little things that you might everyday items you might need, you could get there. Kind of like your own little corner store. Um, but the big PX was usually closer. Big PXs were always set so that the spouses could get to them easier than the service folk.
Hmm.
You
Because
know.
when I was in there at what they considered the prep school academy um, area, where I used to live at for my first year and a half, we had to go through our little bitty area where we had like our barber shop, our post office, and everything like that. So it was like a little bitty area with all these smaller offices. And then if we keep walking, that's when you get to this big area where the big PX was at. And like I said, it's only one way in and one way out.
Yeah.
So after you walk so many blocks towards the area that I just talked about, if you were a civilian, you will be out of bounds if you're unless you're going to the barbershop, because the barbershop was technically fair game,
Oh, okay. See, for
because it
us,
was really meant for us on base, but they let civilians sometimes use it.
oh, see, Lejeune, the way Lejeune is set up, none of that is accessible to civilians unless you have permission. You're working on camp. If you're working in Camp Lejeune, there are certain, depending on where you're set to work, there are certain areas, like if it's we had a little place across from, like, truck companies' offices. Across the road from us is like this little diner set up. And if you were one of the road crews working in our area, you could go to the diner and eat, but you had to let us go first. Anybody who didn't want to go to chow hall and eat, you
Mhm.
couldn't go eat at the chow hall, but the diner you could go, because anybody who ate there had to pay. But
See,
the
we didn't
chow,
we, we didn't have that, at least not on our base here. because the Air Force Academy base itself is broke up to like the main academy.
Okay.
That was kind of like, its own separate thing. Then they had like another where it called like a prep school area. So it's like people who they brought in that was already like in the reserves, active duty and everything, that had a possibility of getting an appointment to the academy could come, and they would catch, there was more along the lines of like a catch up type school to get you caught up
Oh,
where you could meet like all the requirements and everything for getting into the academy. There was another area that's there. Now, mind you, that area is one base. About 15 miles down the road, you have Fort Carson, who also
oh,
had their own PX and everything. And the one thing that they always used to tell us is that we better not catch you at Christopher's if you're underage. Christopher was the only bar.
oh, yeah. Because
Yeah.
you would have because the way Lejeune is set up when you come in, um, yeah, Cherry Point had a
Yeah.
small mall.
Hmm.
Um, the way Lejeune is set up, it's two main sections. There's the commercial section, and that's where I learned how to drive. Was I was a driver, so I learned driving commercial vehicles, and then there was the tactical or combat section, and they both have their own motor pools.
Hmm.
So I first was put in truck company in the commercial area, and then I got sent to a tactical unit, and I had to go to driver's school again because it was like, but I got my license, and they're like, yeah, for commercial vehicles, but you don't have a license for a Jeep or a deuce and a half or a 5 ton or 18 gear. You ain't got none of them licenses, so you got to go do it all over again.
Hmm.
And then so they had the main points were set up, and the commercial side was where they had the satellite PX, and they also had the bar. There was a little bar that we could, and I think the USO ran the bar. I think it was a USO run bar. They would have, you know, you could go and get drinks and little bar food, and they had dancing. You could go do country western dancing. They had CW dancing. Um, and then there was another section that was housing, and housing was split into if you they were regular housing for married. It was regular housing for married grades, and that was for the hardest to get into because those are the people who needed it the most. And
Right.
um, they had the fewest amount of housing for them. Then the NCOs had their housings. And then that broke into regular NCOs and then staff and then senior staff and then officers. And it was the bachelor officers, the BOQ, had
Hmm.
their own housing, and then married officers, and then, the big wigs. On the other side from that is where the hospital was set. And then to the other end, don't ask me north, south, east, west. I used to know this by heart and I can't. Used to be where they had combat training. They had the driving school for tactical, and you would go up into the woods to drive. And
Hmm.
that was also where people who had to do their combat training. So we would be driving down the road, and then across our track would be like parts of, because I didn't know this, because you would see movies where people were driving tanks and stuff. And what people don't know is those tanks are meant as off road vehicles. So when you drive them down commercial roads with
They would
paving,
tear them up.
it tears them up. So you would be driving, and all of a sudden, across your path would be bits of tank treads, and you would have to try to avoid the tank treads, or you could, have an accident because some of the smaller ones are not a problem, but sometimes if you get a big enough piece, it could pierce a tire, or if you're not that skilled a driver, you know, you kind of skid depending on your speed. So you have to drive carefully. Plus, it's in the woods. What people don't realize, Marine Corps bases and some Army bases also act as forest preserves. They are wildlife preserves. So you
Hmm.
have a lot of animals that you don't see. Like I got to see bears. I had never seen bears in the wild before until I went to Lejeune. And bears ran across the road. Luckily, they were 50 feet away from me, but I'm like trying to slow down, and my teacher's like, "What's wrong?" Just like, "Bears, bears." And it's like, "Yeah, they're like 50 feet." It's like, "No, we're going too fast. It's a mommy and her cubs. I don't want to kill the cubs." And then I got yelled at for like 20 minutes because I was trying to avoid the bears. And then I went and ran over a turtle,
Hmm.
because he told me, okay, we've got 10 minutes and we got 30 miles, and you got to get us there in less than 10, you got to get us back in less than 10 minutes, and we're going downhill. And I didn't see the turtle there. Boom, ran. I had the 5-ton that day, so you didn't quite feel it.
Hmm.
But yeah, poor turtle went. And my teacher's like, "Do you know you ran over a turtle?" It's like it was a communist turtle. He was waving a copy of the Pravda at me. you know? Calling me comrade. He had it coming, But yeah, so they had the tactical school, and then you had where people would go, as they used to say, out in the field for field exercises, and
Yeah,
would be driving, and you would hear gunfire and things exploding.
kind of like what we had to do for air-based ground defense because they had a specific wooded area that covered several miles, and they would break us up into two different groups. One side would be offense, the other side would be defense, and you switch sides depending on what day it is.
And it made being you had to quickly learn where you were on base and
Mhm.
where you were assigned to. And I was lucky because I got assigned to the commercial side first, and so they were a little more laid back. And so we would get people above us who would say, "Hey, if you need this, this, and this, you go here. If you want this, this." We had people above us who would guide you. And we had a sizable. Most of the women in truck company were on this. We were on one floor together. When I got to a tactical unit, all the women in truck company were in the same room. So there were like three of us, and we were all in the room together. And that was the female contingent of our tactical units, female drivers. And then I got, my CEO said, "You look like you look good in a skirt. Go put on your highest heels and your shortest skirt and some makeup and come down and work as a company clerk." And it's like, I can't type. I don't care. You look like you look good in a skirt.
So that's what the beginning of the attitude. It's like, what you doing this weekend? We're going to the bar. You know the drill. Hey, you look cute. We got tables down.
Well, it was also, this is like, was it? This is North Carolina. They had some decent strip clubs, but they only had one strip club where the dancers were dudes. And some girlfriends that I knew from the commercial were like, "Hey, girl, we're going to this forget letting the dudes drag at all these female strip clubs. We're going to take you to a strip club that's all dudes." Which was like, yeah. So we get out, dressed up, put on makeup, went out there, and then there were a bunch of civilian women, and the civilian women thought they owned shit. Sorry.
No, 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 no. That's perfectly fine. I just up here just thinking to myself, it's like, uh-oh. It was safer with the men because now if you lay hands on these women, you could end up in some serious trouble.
We threw hands. We didn't get busted, but because the civilian women had to get their allowances from their husbands. I made my own money. We were like, "Yo, baby, we got paid." And just like the female strippers, they gonna go to who's got the money. It's like, bring,
Mhm.
bring that banana hammock over here. I'm gonna put something in it. So, And
And
we
Cliff
would
was like, the look on Cliff was like, what did I get myself into?
sorry, I'm sorry. But yeah, we
I
were.
mean, this is just military life. This is what it was like when
This
you were,
is
yeah.
you got up. I had to get up because I had the slowest running time. That meant I had to report every morning. I had to be up at 04:30. I had to report at 05, was it 05:30 to a gunnery sergeant who, with if you every 6 months to a year you have to do a physical test. How many sit-ups can you do? How many push-ups can you do? How long can you do the flexed arm hang? I used to do really good at the flexed arm hang. Get up there and
Oh,
like
so they never made you do the full,
we didn't
yeah.
do women didn't do pull-ups. We did what was called the flexed arm hang. And you had to
Uh,
hang from the bar.
you couldn't be Air Force then.
Um,
You couldn't be Air
and
Force because they made the women do chin ups too. The
our
flex arm
DIs.
hang was only for those that were in remedial
Oh, okay.
to get them acclimated to it. But no, flex arm hang was not one of those things.
No, we had to do, and our DIs were smart. It was like, you want to get some time in on the flexed arm hang? Get your hands behind your head,
Hmm.
lock them elbows, just breathe. Just focus on the point and breathe. Don't listen to nobody talk. Just breathe. Because you had to do at least 90 seconds in the flex. You had to do 90 seconds was the top, and I think the lowest was like 20 or something, and I could easily pull 45 to 60, depending. So my flexed arm hang, but my running, I was never a runner. Couldn't run to save my life, as my gunnery sergeant would say. So every morning, Monday through Friday, I had to get up and report to him and go run 5 to 8 miles because they thought that would make me a better runner. Just,
See, that would that technically it does. It's
it,
weird. It's weird, but it
you do
does.
it long and often enough, you can at least get through. You can get through the course within the time if you're used to running that distance because it's a 3 mile.
Because
It's a 3 mile run that we had to do, and you have to do it within so much time. And I was always about the first time I think I was about a minute off, and then I had to spend 6 months doing that running every day. I beat the course because it
mhm.
was like I was tired of getting up at the crack of crack and having to go. I couldn't eat. You can't eat it. You have just enough time to get up, get out your jammies, put some clothes on, and report, and then go run. You know, and then I would go to the bathroom and vomit, grab a fives, grab what you used to call duck showers, duck your butt in, duck your butt out,
Mhm.
and make sure you're cleaner coming out than you were going in. Grab because I had to shower every day because I had to work down in the office, and they didn't care about smelling the men, but women couldn't have a sniff factor, and then go to chow hall, grab a quick breakfast, and then get to work. And I had to be at work a little early because I worked in the office. So it was okay, get in there. Did we get any phone calls? Do I need to check and is there anything I need to check and make sure? And then I became the unit problem solver, which meant people would call me at 3 a.m. in the morning. Hey, I can't find my truck. Or, you know, yes, I have to tell
I
you
know.
that one day, or 3:30, about 3:30 in the afternoon. Okay, so I'm driving my Jeep down the road. I did not see that they had stretched this metal thing across the road. And I was driving and I saw it, but I saw it at the last minute. So I ducked down to the side so I wouldn't get my head cut off, but it sheared through the windshield. and it was the CO's Jeep.
Yep, you're in trouble.
And it's like, okay, and it's like, and he's like, the guy and he's a friend, and he's panicking, and I'm like, oh my god. And I'm having to go, okay, hold on, let me get a piece of paper, let me get an ink pen, tell me everything that happened. And luckily I was able to prove that the guys who were, they were working on the road, and on the military base, when they're doing road work, 2 blocks every direction, they're supposed to put sign that there's road work. And if they've got something stretched across the road, they have to block the road from both directions so you don't run into that metal stuff. But
Mhm.
they didn't do that. So he's coming through. He doesn't, there's nothing to indicate that there's road work going on, or there's something, you know, that there's this metal cord stretched across the road. And when he's driving in the speed limit, but when you're doing 35 miles an hour, it's still going to shear. It could have killed him.
Mhm. Could decapitate him.
So now I've got to put all this information. I got to call the guy in charge of the workers. I then have to go to my gunnery sergeant, report it, explain it. And he's like, oh, the CO's going to want to hear this. And it's like, well, here's my information. No, no, girl, you go in there. Then I
Yeah,
got to
'cause-
explain it to the CO. And he's like, that's the general's Jeep. I'm like, yes, sir, it's the CO's Jeep. It's the general's Jeep. He's like, that's the last Jeep we have. I'm like, okay, I did not know that. He goes, somebody needs to explain this to the general. I'm like,
mhm.
oh, well, here's my notes and everything. Here's the people I talked to. They admit they were in the wrong. Um, he goes, no, Haygood, you are going to go. I had to call the general's office and explain to the general's clerk what happened. And then physically walk to
Go
the general's
and
office
talk to him
and
directly.
explain to the CEO and show him all my little maps and everything and explain what all happened. I
Mhm.
felt like Arlo Guthrie doing Alice's restaurant. all my pictures with my diagrams. Thing is, because I knew the regs, because women Marines, they hammered a UCMJ in our heads, like, and when we got on base, the first thing they do is, here are the rules for drivers for this base. So you had to, before you could get behind the wheel, you had to learn all the rules for driving on the base. The first 2 weeks of driver's school
Mhm.
in commercial company is learning all those rules. So at least I was able to, because I made notes and stuff, and knew that this didn't sound right. I was able to do a little detective work and get the truth of what happened. Because at first they tried to make it out like, no, no, it's his fault. It's like, in other words, if I call the corporal of the guard, and what I was smart, because I called the corporal of the guard and explained the situation, because it's a traffic accident.
Mhm.
So I immediately have to call the corporal of the guard and say, hey, guess what? Our driver, CO's Jeep, just went on blah, blah, blah road, totaled, sheared through, and the driver's okay, but the Jeep is not operable. Can you go down there and take pictures and make sure that everything's okay? And if he needs, I'm Lane, PFC Haygood, company clerk, you need to go down there and check and make sure my driver's okay, that everything, and I need to know, you need to give me a detailed explanation of what this site looks like. So I had already called the corporal of the guard, and as well as base police. So when the dude is on the phone trying to tell me, oh, he came zooming through there, and it's like, did you have pictures? Did you have the necessary signage up in all 4 directions, 2 blocks and a 2 blocks parameter on all sides? And he was like, I'm like, did you have that? He was like, I have to check. And at at that time, it's like, well, call me back. 5 seconds later, my phone
Mhm.
rings. It's the corporal of the guard and base police, and they're telling me what the site looks like. And it's like, are there any signage? Is there any signage saying that they're doing road work put up according to the regulations. And he's like, no. He's like, okay, so they're already in trouble
Mm-hmm.
because they did not have the right signage. And you had something that could cause serious injury, including death, when you stretch that metal cable across the road. And you didn't have anything to let someone know that there was a cable across the road. So my driver could have been killed. We were lucky that we only lost the COSG. I said, can you please type up that report and send it to me, or let me know when it's ready. I will come down and get it. So because I have to now call, I got to go explain this to my gunny and let him know. And the next thing I know, I'm standing there in the general's office with all this paperwork
Right.
going. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. He's a good man, and he has a wife, and they just had a baby. Because he was in tears. They just had a baby. His wife was mad at me because I used to make him laugh. And then his wife walked up to get it. And I don't know about Air Force Base, but on Marine bases, when it's payday, all the wives show up on base to collect their husband's check. So, because they have their little thing that says, they have their little ID, and so that they can come. We don't give the checks are not handed out to married men. The wives, unless they're officers, the wives will show up. I want that check. I want that check now. It's like, sign here. Okay. Stamp. Here's your check. It's like, payday is always fun when you're a company clerk, because and it's funny because they knew they knew they could only come. I think it was right after lunch. They would be parked across the street.
Wow. Okay, I was in I was in an era where everything was direct deposited.
Okay, well, they hadn't. You're talking the 80s, early 80s.
Yeah,
So
I was
we
90s.
weren't.
I was
Okay,
90s.
so we didn't have direct deposit then. So they would come, and you had to pick up they would deliver the checks to all the different company offices. And as company clerk, sometimes even though it was supposed to be the gunny's job, sometimes the gunny didn't want to deal. Our gunnery sergeant didn't want to deal with the wives. He was like, "Hey, good." It's like, oh damn! Every time they say my name, whenever he would say my name with that, "Hey, good," it's like, okay.
That's like, what am I getting him out of this?
What fresh hell is this? He would just be like, oh, there's a job I don't want to do that I've decided you would do very well. It's like, great. This is just what I need. And they would, and they'd show up, and they're not friendly women. They are not friendly women. It was like, sweetie. And they all look at you, none of them was below a size 12.
No, I have to scratch my head because it's like it's more along the lines that they know them before or after.
I don't know.
That's what makes me think.
But, it's like, and they have somebody, you work out every day, don't you? It's like, well, ma'am, it's part of the job. I am required. I'm working in a tactical office. We are a combat office. If we can get the call, I may have to step on foreign soil and kill somebody. I gotta be in shape for that. Sorry, I'm a size 7, not my bum. You get up and run every day for an hour and a half before, all you get to do is go to the bathroom and then run for an hour and a half and see how your body looks. In fact, I will talk to the gunny if you want to come join us. Now, thank you. It's like, okay. I'm trying to be friendly. You mad at me for something I have no control over. Don't be mad at me for something I have no control over.
It's the perception. It's like, oh, you look better than I do. Now I gotta be mad.
It's like, you the one he married to.
Mm-hmm.
You the one he
he
married
comes home
to.
to you, not the other way around.
Yeah, you the one takes it home too at night. I ain't got time to mess with your husband. Do you know what my dad's like? I'm solving problems. I'm trying to keep folks from suiciding and the general from showing up at our door and making, demanding, where is my Jeep? I have a whole bunch of men.
You was worried about a general. Our CO was a colonel, and you don't want him showing up. And it's very rare that we got to see a general where I was at. And when you did, it was not pretty.
Well,
I had to save somebody from a general. I had to save somebody from a general only because he didn't salute.
Oh God!
It was so messed up. It was just like it was a real misunderstanding because
what a misunderstanding. You were taught your first day in boot camp. If you are looking at somebody who has this insignia on his chest, on their arms, you owe them a salute.
Yeah, you owed him a salute. He greeted him and everything. It was almost as if he didn't pay any attention to it. So he kind of like didn't salute. I did. And you know how upper brass are.
Oh,
they will act like they're not paying attention, but they really are like Hawkeye. We're like we're like almost like half a block away from them, and they all say it's like, you two come here. I was like, yes sir. We go back over there. It's like, yes sir. We greet him again, this, that, and the other, and then it's like, is there anything wrong, sir? And then that's when
I'm not running away from you guys, but my dog needs to be let out.
Okay, not a problem.
Hey, puppy.
So and it's like, we pop the salute. It's like, is there any problem here? Here, sir. And that's where he lit into him.
Oh my God! And he didn't salute.
And the only thing that I could do to save him was apologize for him and take the brunt of what he was giving to him. He looked over at me. It's like, you're a good wingman. You did your job. I'm happy. And then it's like, you're free to go. And I was like, if he was by himself, I could just imagine our master sergeant when we got back to the base.
Oh my goodness!
It would have been over. It would have been over for him. It would have been completely over. You don't mess with a 2-star.
Oh yeah, no, you don't.
You don't mess with a 2-star like that.
You don't mess with any. You don't mess with any of the generals that way.
No.
I had to go to sick bay, and I was on my way. I had some dental surgery done, and I was on my way back. I was at boot camp, and I was on my way back to my company barracks. And unfortunately, the way I was walking, there was a whole bunch of generals, captains, majors, colonels, lieutenant colonels, men and women walking. I could not walk around them. And they saw me coming, so I couldn't turn and go the other way. So I got into the middle and was like going, sir, ma'am, sir, ma'am, sir. And they let me do it. And then they were like, who are you? It's like, Private Haygood, And they're like, are you, it's like, okay, it's like, yes, sir, I am, this private is a recruit, sir. What unit? 3A. No, 3B, sir. I'm in 3B. Okay. Who's your SDI? Sergeant Monty, sir. Sergeant Monty. And I'm like, oh, she's gonna kill me. She knew about it. By the time she goes, they made you went and saluted each of them. And I was like, well, ma'am, I didn't know what to do. She goes, they were cracking up so hard. One general salute, sirs and ma'ams. And they wouldn't let you go, but they said it was so cute watching you turn.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Sergeant Monty told all the other drill instructors. So for like days, it was like, I'd be walking. Hey, good, there's the lieutenant. It was just, I got it. By the time I got out of the Corps, I hated the sound of my last name. I just, because you don't address, if you're in uniform, even if it's somebody who's the same rank
You always
or
address them by
lower
their
rank,
last name.
you never address them while you're in uniform by their first name. You always address them rank first, then the name. If you're talking about them formally, or if you're just you're at the PX and you're shopping, if you're in uniform, you can only address each other by the last name. If you're all PFCs, you ain't got to go PFC, but because you know each other, it's like, yo, hey, hey, Washington, hey, Merrill, you can't call it. And it's so funny because when I left, so many people are like, what is, you would know somebody from us and they go, what's your first name, by the way? Because you're just so used to just being a rank and a last name. They do break you down to like your bare minimum. You are a rank and a first name. I mean, a last name. You don't. It's like my first name was for the weekends, and even on the weekends, I had guys and girls I would hang out.
It barely was used on the weekends.
Yeah, you would call each other, and sometimes we would do it because even though we were in civilian clothes and whatnot, we were off base. We would only use last names because if something happened, because they would tell us you don't know who you're going to run into. Yeah, you're on American soil, but we have no control of what's going on in Jacksonville. All we control is what's happening on Lejeune. You don't know what's happening in Jacksonville. You don't know who you'll be talking to. Be careful how you address each other. Be careful what you say. Never get so drunk that you lose control of who you are.
And with us, it's like, oh, by the way, if you go to the bar and you're underage, we catch you drinking, that's your ass. They made certain of that aspect. They drilled that up.
You had, but that's because you guys had cadets and stuff. For us at Lejeune, I think, because I think I'm trying to remember. You couldn't go into the bar if you were underage, and you had to, in order to get into the bar on base, you had to be at least 21.
See, that's the difference. That's the difference. If you were under 18, you couldn't get into the bar. But if you could only drink if you're over 21, and they card everybody. They do card everybody. So
but they wouldn't even, some of the bars, the main bar, because it also served dinner, you could go in and eat. But if it was just some little satellite bar, you couldn't go in there if you were underage because you couldn't drink. They were, and Marines, I will say, we're heavy drinkers. I learned to love tequila while in the Corps. So tequila, Jose and I ran many a mission.
See, Air Force is all about major discipline and holding yourself accountable. It's like, yeah, we'll let you in, but don't, it's like if you do something, don't get caught or else there's hell to pay.
Well,
I have seen people get drummed out for stupid stuff, like forgetting to pay for a lighter.
Wow. We had a girl decided she had enough. And back in the early 80s, there were only two ways to get out. You either got pregnant or you told them you were gay. Because back then we're talking the early 80s here.
Well, I thought there was a third way. I thought it was a third way, but the third way was too hard to do back then. And the third way is to have your DI disqualify you.
No, they would just They could have easily done me like that, but then they would go, "You're going to get up every morning at 04:30. You're going
That's
to
why I say it's
report
the
to the
hardest. It's
PT.
the hardest thing to do
Yeah,
because
you are
they
going
they
to
they will.
run. And whatever it is you were short on, because in boot camp we had a girl. I'm like 5 foot. She was almost 6 feet tall, and she couldn't do a flex arm hand. And Sergeant Myers, I had to work on my running. She had to work on a flex arm hang. And Sergeant Myers used to do it one handed. All our DIs were ex-military police, so they were teaching us fighting moves whenever we had, But Sergeant Myers could sit there and just like this, and there we go. And when we had to do the PT exam, she just behind her head just like this, and they'd let her do that for like 40 seconds. Like, okay, you're done. We will just go ahead as if you did it for 90, because we got dudes that can't do that. You
Mhm.
showing, the CEO can't do that. You showing him up. Um, but she used to make me run, and she used to make this girl do like the flexed arm hang. And I used to feel so sorry for her, because it was just that was at least. And she said, "You know what, Haggard, you're gonna go up there and do it with her." I'm like, but I passed mine. She goes, "Good. This will make you even
No,
better."
it's solidarity. That's what she was showing you. Solidarity.
It's solidarity. So I would have to, because she could
Solidarity.
outrun me.
Solidarity almost got one of my PT tests disqualified
Ooh.
because it's like you could cheer on your other teammates and everything while they're on the track, but you can't run with them.
Oh, did you get
I
on the track?
ran with them for a certain part of that track, and they was up there like
Yeah.
who's him? So I didn't find out until afterwards, because if I would have did the whole thing again, I would have been disqualified. But because I stopped,
Okay.
there's like, okay, he probably is not aware of, he could cheer, but he can't run.
Behind today's show, behind the green curtain.
Yeah, we're doing it behind the military side of things,
Yeah,
because we
behind.
had we had two running events at our PT.
Oh, you had two. We
We
only
had
had.
two. We had the 800 meter
Okay.
that was always done on a track, and then we had our 2.5 mile, was called our aerobics fitness test.
Oh, we had
Now you
the.
have to be mindful. We're doing this in 7,000 feet in the air because we're in Colorado.
Oh,
So
okay.
our 2.5 miles was like this one track that went around like this athletic center, that the athletic center at the actual United States Air Force Academy. So the way it starts off, you start running and you run down and you keep going, you run all the way around, and the very end of it is like about like an 800-meter incline
Ah,
that you
okay.
have to go up. The total course is like 2.5 miles, and you have to complete that 2.5 miles, I believe. Up, and it's like if you're a male, it's under 6, and if you're female, under 8.
Okinawa, we had an 8 mile run we had to do every morning. And the first leg of it was uphill. And I used to hate that run, because it was like I got to, after a couple of weeks, you get to where you can, you can survive it,
Mhm.
But the first couple of times, it's like I'm gonna throw up. It's like, whatever you do, don't throw up on the road. Get to the get to the side of the road, vomit vomit your guts out, and then catch up. It's like you can't wait.
The
It's like, no,
good old
ain't nobody waiting for you. If we're on the battlefield, are we supposed to stop and wait for you to vomit? No, we got to move forward. It's like, okay, but what have you know, on the battlefield, there's probably mines around, so you throw up. If your vomit's heavy enough, boom.
yeah,
Yeah.
again, the good old songs of hurry up, catch the pack, hurry up, don't fall back, hurry. It's
No,
like, where you going to catch the rest of them? You're too far behind. Catch up, bro.
we had this one company 3A had a sergeant. I can never remember her name. Little bitty woman. She had to be about 4'10", but she could call cadence like nobody's business. and we had to do our force marches, especially when they said, "Oh, guess what? You're going to be the first platoon of women to go in the field, field training for combat exercises since the 50s. They hadn't had women Marines do field training, combat exercises since I think Korea,
Wow.
and we were the first women since then to do it, which was really exhausting because we had press all around us. We had a lot of different state officials and stuff and officers, and the chief of naval operations at that time was Admiral Hayward. And people go, "What's your name?" "Haygood." "Really? Are you related to the admiral?" And it's like, and I had never seen him. And then I found out what he looked like. And it's like, "No, sir. The admiral is a 6'2" white man. His last name is Hayward. My name is Haygood. I'm a 5'1/2" black woman. Unless his family owned mine, I don't think we're related." And every time, and it got to the point when we had the press and stuff, I had to say it at least 4 or 5 times in a day, because there was always that one idiot that would come up and go, "Are you?" It's like, "No, I am not related to Admiral Hayward."
Do I have a link to my published works? Yes. Bear with me for 1 second. I will go ahead and give you the company website here.
I edit for him.
Yep.
I'm the one to tell him where all the periods go, because I was a woman and I know that automatically.
No, that's because you're a clerk and you made all the generals and stuff look good.
That too. And it was funny because I was the slowest typist ever. There were men who were typing 75 to 90 words a minute. My top typing speed is 25 words per minute. So you would have men, gunnery sergeants, and then and they would go, "Okay, hey, good, you have to type up this report." Click, 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 click. Slower than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like, "Hey, good, can't you type faster?" It's like, I can run faster, I can lift heavier, and I can whoop just about any man 1.5 times my size. However, I cannot type. It is a mental malfunction, which psychology has no cure.
The whole thing of mental malfunction, and because you're a Marine, I cannot process that in my jar at this moment.
Sir, as a Marine, I am only allowed to think thoughts at this level. Typing at 90 words a minute is this level, which is above my pay grade. Therefore, I can only type here.
And nothing that you
Your
can.
tax dollars at work. I'm so sorry, Cliff.
So, well, we're going to change gears because we've got 30 minutes left in the show. I'm not even certain if we got any books to review here because I don't have it. Oh, you do?
Cliff, do you have a book?
Yeah. Comic book review.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know. We've been talking so much. It's like we kind of left you.
Before I forgot, because it goes along with it. Sort of goes along with the military because it's in green, but it goes along with what Elaine talked about last week. I found today that the pre-orders for
the Fantastic Four. Let me put you on the big screen here. Yep,
the Fantastic Four
with the She-Hulk.
If she comes with her weight and her ponytail hair.
So did they do the other thing? Did they did the scene with her with the one weight that they had in Four Freedoms Plaza?
But you can reenact it with the 2 weights.
Okay.
But yeah, I like when Marvel puts out their retro package figures because they put a little bit more work into them. Because I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, but I love the retro Spider-Man figures that they do because it looks like comic art. So,
the 90 ones, the old retro 90 ones.
The old 90 ones that are more in scale with the Marvel Legends of today. they're the only figures I don't open because the packaging's so nice. But yeah, they're doing a Fantastic Four retro from the old cartoon, and they're doing a She-Hulk this year. So I was like, oh,
Cool.
we just talked about her. So okay.
How was it?
It was okay. The only thing new I've read lately is I read the first issue of Hush, Hush 2.
Okay.
It was the first issue.
Is that a Batman book?
Mhm.
Hush.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's if you've read a Jeff Loeb Batman story, you probably can guess what this first issue was like. And of course, because it's Hush, he has a sidekick that has a sonic power like Black Canary, because of course he does. And it was a decent first issue. I'm looking forward to reading the second one, but I enjoy Jeff Loeb's Batman work enough, so I'm kind of biased. Only thing I really didn't like is it was a little too Jim Lee art. And what I mean by that is,
okay.
he can never, like, the one panel, couple of panels that had Nightwing and Bat Oracle Girl in it. It couldn't just be a scene of her working on the computer and him standing there. Of course, he had to be doing some kind of athletic gymnastics thing, hanging from the raptor showing his cheesecake. Like, you can draw Dick Grayson standing still. It does happen.
He
so
stands still in his book more often than anything else.
Yeah,
but it gives the fanboys something to drool over
while
they tell themselves they're not that way.
I heard a long time ago in urban legend that there's a group of female Nightwing Dick Grayson fans that are so belligerent to avoid them calling or writing the office. They put X number of butt shots of Dick Grayson in a book he's in. Just
no, that rumor is somewhat true.
There's
a cult following that does exactly that.
and I've heard it's mainly because of those women why Dan DiDio did not kill him in Infinite Crisis. So I love them for that. But yeah, it's just, I like Jim Lee's art because I grew up with it somewhat. Because it was outside of George Perez, that was the only artist at the time I could really like, oh, that's Jim Lee art.
Okay.
But I don't know, it's like, it's too Jim Lee, if that makes sense. It's like, you can't just write a regular book and draw it. It doesn't have to be epic. It can just be the normal comic book. So I didn't like that. I'm interested enough to see what happens next, but because of internet, it's kind of been spoiled for me a little bit, and they're ruining it by bringing Jason Todd in. And I'm sorry if you're a Red Hood fan. I voted for him to die in the 80s. And I'm sorry. When they brought him back and he was an anti-Batman and he was a Bat villain with the training of a Robin, I thought that was awesome. But then when he had his come to Jesus moment, now he's like, the emo god children or whatever, I can't deal with it. But I'm interested to see where the book goes. If it's Jeff Loeb writing Batman, so it's going to be good. I'm not sold. Jim Lee just needs to not be Jim Lee with the art, and I'd be happier with it. But to answer the question before everything else, I'm looking forward to the Summer of Superman books and whatever is going to come out of Mark Waid and Scott Snyder collaborating on the new big event this summer, just because they're teasing there's going to be another Rip Hunter Blackboard in the series, and I always love that. So those are the two main things I'm looking forward to, and the only other thing I'm really looking forward to, hopefully this year, is they keep teasing me with James Robinson and Tony Harris doing Starman again. And it's supposed to be a Black Label book, and it's supposed to be out this year or next year. And if that happens, that's the main thing I'm looking forward to from now until forever. But with my luck, Tony and James will break up again and it'll never happen. So,
Oh.
but yeah, that's the only real review I have, and that's what I'm looking forward to coming out. Plus, getting this She-Hulk figure. So,
You got She-Hulk figure?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's what
get
he was
this.
talking about in the very beginning with the She-Hulk figure. Because I was asking about recreating the scene from the comic books that
Mhm.
from the Four Freedoms Plaza where she was holding similar weights.
The only problem is if I get that, I have bad impulse control, and I'll have to get the other one, the other Fantastic Four retro figures, and they're out of not out of print, out of whatever you would call it for a figure. So I'd have to
Oh, okay.
I'd have to pay
It'll
like
be on
eBay
back order.
prices.
It'll be
So,
back order for you.
yeah, so She-Hulk may accidentally on purpose fall out of the package. So
Okay.
yeah, because see the Spider-Man ones, I was only going to get Hobgoblin and Spider-Man 2099, but
Okay.
they kept bringing so many more out. I'm like, man, they look so good on the wall. So now I'm having to go back and get like the first series, and people are proud of their Green Goblin. I'm not spending that much. I'll wait for the reissue.
That's if there is a reissue.
There's supposed to be, but there was supposed to be a reissue of all of the first series, and I think for some reason they're not going to do it. So I'm hoping they still do Norman, just because I'm not spending $120 on an action figure. My wife would pull me in half. So.
She would like snap you in half.
Yes. So, but yeah, I don't know. The Hush 2 issue 1 was a good first issue. It wasn't, and this, and, it's kind of hard to say because after all this time, the original Hush is like taking on a life of its own about how great of a story it was. But I went back and read the first issue of it, and because it was the first issue of a mystery, it left me with a little bit more that I'd want. It left me a little bit more, okay, what's happening next, as opposed to this first issue where it's like, hey, it's Hush 2, you're going to buy it. Here you go. So I'll end up getting it, and the first issue was okay, but it wasn't nearly as good as the original Hush's first issue was. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
And
all right.
I'm glad they didn't just restart it as a new #1 Batman just because they had a new team on it. They're letting it continue like they did the original Hush with the numbering of the book of the series.
Cool.
So,
Excellent. That's the key thing. That's the key thing. I don't like the renumbering type stuff.
mm-hmm.
All right. You got
And
anything?
I want to say that.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't. It's kind of hard to say, but back then with the original one, I know they were expecting it to be big because of the creators they had on it. But I don't think they thought it would be anything too big. That's why it didn't get a #1 back in the day either, which worked out better until you got to the end of it, and then you realized it was who it was and the Riddler, and you're like, I liked all the fan theories a lot better. So, but yeah.
Not book wise, but the new season of Andor is out.
Okay.
It's an interesting view because if you've watched a classic
Tat Comics.
Hey Tat, if you've watched a classic Star Wars, the rebellion is well organized, it's funded. They've got stuff. People know clearly who is in command and pretty much who's doing what. Andor, these are the early messy days of the rebellion. And I don't want to give anything away, but these first couple of episodes, you see people at the top who are funding things, and then you see people at the bottom. And knowing how it comes about, I was sitting there going, oh my goodness, considering these idiots at the bottom, I'm surprised that they actually had a rebellion to begin with. But it explains a lot when we meet Andor in Rogue One. You get you get a better understanding of why he's kind of the way he is, especially in regards to the rebellion, especially when he tells her, there are those of us who have not been able to do the nice thing. We've had to do the ugly thing, dirty thing. Um, we don't all get the nice missions where you clearly know what's what. And these are those early days where even among a ragtag group of rebels, where people, you know, two people are supposed to meet each other don't end up meeting each other, and the people who intersect, and it's like, well, who's running this anyway? Well, I'm running this. No, I'm running this. Oh, you're not. We're running. You can't run this. I want to run this, and then we'll just shoot each other. We're all supposed to be on the same side, but we've got to be. It's what happens when you don't have enough people who are clear. It's that those first stirrings when you don't have enough of the right people in charge on the ground making the decisions, when you're just finding you're finding who you can and cobbling what you can together and giving, and nobody knows who you are. It's just this person who, orders filter down to you, and you do this, um, and whatnot. Nobody is making sure that everything is supposed to be going the way it's supposed to. And there are just things about it. There are things that had me go, ooh. And then there are things that had me just laughing my butt off, going, oh my goodness, you guys are just lucky something didn't come eat you because you're idiots. And I can't give that away. But it's definitely, if you like the first season, it's definitely interesting to watch because they are taking you through all the characters, the people who are on the side of the rebellion, the people who are working against the rebellion, the boots on the ground people who often don't know much, who are only, for whatever reason, aren't given the big picture and aren't told everything. They're just told a little bit of the little bit of what they're supposed to do, which because they're the cheapest people they could get, doesn't always work when you don't, but it's like, okay, if we tell them everything there is to know, then they become a danger. And it's like, oh God, you can just, as an ex-military person, I'm just sitting there going, oh, this this is going to go wrong on so many levels. And of course it does. But it was definitely fun to watch. John, my youngest, commandeered my bedroom and decided, Mom, you're watching this with me, whether you want to or not. So I got to watch Andor that way because that's how my life goes. So yeah, for you Star Wars fans, or even if you're just now coming into it, I would say Andor is one of those series. Start at the beginning, start with the last season, catch up on who's who and what's what, and then watch the new season, because otherwise you will be stepping into the new season going, well, who are these people and who are these people and how are these people connected and who is this person over here? Watch that first season and then you go, oh my goodness, yeah, wow, he's had an upgrade, and woo, is she up with there? And you it makes more sense that way. Of course, maybe you're better than I am at that sort of stuff. I will admit, I'm in my 60s. I'm old. I got old lady fingers. I take it in differently.
All right.
But that's mine for today.
Okay. Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with all the new Star Wars series they have coming out. I'm behind
Okay.
behind on a lot of them. Like, I'm just now getting around to watching Ahsoka.
Okay, I won't say nothing. I like Ahsoka. I haven't watched any of the other ones.
I'm not. The only reason I started watching Ahsoka is because I'm such a big Star Wars Rebels fan, and this is basically season 5.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And I enjoy that.
And I love Ahsoka. My boys had me watch that that those early seasons when she was when she was a Padawan and everything. I watched that and I saw the situation with her trial, and that broke my heart.
Yeah, see, I hated Ahsoka up until she grew up. I didn't
Right.
like I did not like the Clone Wars cartoon up until it got away from the war so much. It was more about like all the stuff that they had to fill in the blanks with. Just because the more I looked at it, I was like, I know the Separatist army has plot armor, but these are a bunch of idiot robots, and tie your girlfriend to the railroad tracks villain, and you're telling me that an army of space ninjas with lightning swords can't stop them. I can't deal with this.
Well, when you have an adult son who is at the emotional and to
Mm,
some degrees mental equivalent of a 4-year-old,
mm,
he loved it.
yeah.
And
I enjoyed the later episodes. It was just the beginning of it because I'm like, I don't like the idea of we have to know everything. Like, we did not really have to know how the Clone Wars went. We didn't really have to know that Darth Vader was really just whiny little kid that you just wanted to slap the shit out of. You didn't have to know that. Um, just like I liked the Obi-Wan series when they brought it out.
oh,
Up
I
until,
love as my youngest and I have had to watch quite a few of those series, at least somewhat through.
up
And
until the
I have
last
to,
episode,
I have
I
to
loved
slow him down just a second here. You have to be mindful. There were 2 animated Clone Wars series plus the movie.
Yes,
Which animated series?
the original shorts cartoon series that you can watch on Disney Plus now, where it's like the 3-minute episodes, was one of the best cartoons ever made. I love it.
The Tartakovsky ones,
Yes,
not the
and
3D ones. The
not
3D
the 3D.
ones is where I kind of fell in love
Yeah,
with Clone Wars.
no,
The Genndy Tartakovsky ones, it left me with holes of history.
okay,
and I was
my
okay with that because I don't need to be spoon fed everything. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed those. I did not like the Clone War. I did not like the Clone Wars movie. I took
Oh,
my first
I hate the Clone Wars movie.
and
My,
whatever that little crawling booger was, it was supposed to be a hut. I hated it.
mhm.
Um,
okay.
but yeah, I don't know, but I like a lot of the later stuff. Like I love the Bad Batch.
Yes,
I love
John.
Rebels.
Oh,
I love Rebels. I love the 3D Clone Wars.
Mm.
is
And
the
And
3D one where they had the mission that a bunch of the droids had to go on, and
yes,
they had that one. John loved
that
those
one's funny.
episodes. He
Those are funny.
loves those episodes. He adores the hell out of them. And he had seen it, and then he was like, "You have to come watch." And it was like, "Why?" Because you have to come watch. And it's
Now
like,
that
okay.
the final season of Clone Wars, and especially that final episode where Ahsoka and Captain Rex and Maul are trying to get off the ship, was awesome. That whole scene of Maul just wrecking everybody with no lightsaber, I was just like that, and that was kind of brought it back to me about, okay, this is dumb. He's doing that by himself, and 10,000 Jedi's are going to get killed this easily. I can't. Plot armor be damned. Um, but I love the last season of Clone Wars. The first few seasons, I'm just like, kind of like, and that's why I have a love-hate relationship with it. Like I loved Obi-Wan up until the final episode because they had the big fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan again. Obi-Wan kicked his ass again, but because plot armor and we have to make, and we know what happens. Oh, I'm just going to leave you alive, even though I know you killed all these people and you betrayed me and all this other stuff. It drove me up the wall. I'm like, just kill him.
well, that's
Just kill him. I don't care about what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen.
it's
Kill
not
him.
about what's going to happen. It's just the whole thing about serendipity and poetic justice. And it's like you kill all these people, I'm about to leave you here to die. And it's like, what makes you think that nobody knows where he's at? What makes you think that Palpatine can't sense the Force and know exactly where he's at to go get him?
Yeah,
It's stupid. It's
My
stupid on that
youngest,
aspect.
my youngest is more on the relationship between Obi-Wan and young Leia. That he approached it more between Obi-Wan and young Leia. That was his
That
favorite
all
part of the series, about watching Leia as a very young child.
Mhm.
And the whole situation she gets into, and he has to get her out of it, and um, he really liked that part of.
Mhm.
That was the part that he was most, that was the part he was most into. And I sat and watched it with him, and we would talk about it, because he thought, oh wow, and it's like, yeah, and then Leia grows up, and that's why she puts so much faith in Obi-Wan, and she sends the message via R2D2 and whatnot, because he's in her time of need, he was the one who was there.
Mhm. And the all the way up until the end, Obi-Wan, all of that with Leia and him and the chase and all that, it was very Star Wars. It was a very
Very
Star Wars
Star Wars,
thing.
yeah.
It just the ending of it, the ending of the series killed it for me. I couldn't get past it. But have y'all seen the trailer for Maul?
I haven't seen the
No,
trailer for
I
Maul.
just saw I saw part of the trailer for the Rise of the Sith,
Mm.
and I'm not sure. It's one of those. Okay, you mean he didn't die? He gets to come back.
Mm.
I'm kind of like, there's that point of, how dead do I have to make you before you actually die?
Well, you see, Darth Maul's really a member of the X-Men. He's got his little egg on Krakoa. They just keep bringing him back every time he dies. That's what it is. He's
No, I
yeah.
thought they explained it kind of sort of in all of these animated series.
They explain it in X-Men too, but it boils down to they have him over in a
He
corner.
doesn't have regeneration, but for some reason it just seems like you give him a death blow, he has forever before he dies, and
Mm.
somebody always tend to find him and mend him back together or put him back together in some form or some fashion. The
I was
guy
supposed to
just
say, are they
doesn't.
cloning
They just
his
don't leave
butt?
him alone to die.
Well, no, it's
At some point, he needs to say, you know what? I have done my thing. I've done
He
it.
doesn't give up the
It does
ghost that
not work
easily,
out for
though.
me. I'm going to go find me this. I found this like swamp planet, and I'm going to go sit there in the mud. Don't
And
come look
and
for me.
I still sit back and think about what they did to his brother.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they gave him motivation to not
Yeah.
die. It's like,
Well,
oh, he's messed up. He got all of this robotic parts. They mess up his robotic parts. It's like they just giving him more and more motivation not to die.
I I liked the buildup of when they brought Maul into Rebels, and he was always looking for Obi-Wan, and the
Mhm.
buildup and the buildup, and they finally meet, and the fight is one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand, I was so disappointed. I was like, I've been waiting for this. But on the other hand, I have been Darth Maul in that situation and getting ready and training and preparing for my big moment, and I get choked out in 30 seconds. So I understood the man. I understood. So, but the Maul series looks really good, and the big thing everyone's trying to figure out right now is he's going to have an apprentice apparently, and
Oh, okay.
it's a Twi'lek girl that's bright red, and a lot of people are trying to figure out if that's going to be Darth Talon from the Star Wars Legacy comics, which I recently started reading online. And on one hand, Darth Talon's cool. I hope they bring her in. It'd be cool to bring her in. On the other hand, the story and Legacy was so good. I just like leave
Okay.
it where it's at.
We got a quick question to address here. I think that's going to
Can
be
you
for
put
the
the
both of
panel
you.
links,
Yeah.
their channels in the chat so I can sub?
So if both of you, if you got your YouTube channels handy, if you could put it in the chat for Tats Comics, that would be helpful.
Oh, okay.
Tat,
But
you're wonderful, but I have no link to anything.
but getting
Let's see
back
if
to
I
your
can
point
remove it.
here about the Mall series, the only thing I want the Mall series to really do is to pick up from where Rogue One left off.
Hold on.
That's a big plot hole for me and Darth Maul. The end of Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, where did you come from and why you're there, before episode 4?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what's going on here. Why, Han Solo's so-called girlfriend could not go with him and decide to become a part of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
I want that part of the story now.
Yeah.
If Maul doesn't give me that, then I could care less. I could care less about the apprentice. I could care less about everything else.
I have to say, most of the times when, aside from the stuff most people that get upset with about Star Wars, if I go into it with an idea about something with Star Wars, I'm usually proven a little bit wrong. Like, I was determined I was not going to like Rogue One because I was just like, I know how the story ends. But they did such a good job with that movie when all of them started dying left, right, and center, which I knew was going to happen. I got sad.
Hmm.
I got
Yeah,
real sad. So I was like,
and
okay.
it's what's gonna happen. Oh, it's like, okay, these are the Bothan spies, as they
Mm-hmm.
are referred to in the first movie. These are the
Mm-hmm.
Bothan spies. Got it. And you when after that first planet, you go, oh crap. Hopefully they can get all this done and make it out, and then yeah, it's one of those. They're just going left and right, and
Mm-hmm.
each death is, really to me it was just, and I had to sit there with John,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like sitting there with a toddler, kind of just going, okay, I'll hold your hand. Yes, he died, really, he was really brave. Yes, that was really bad, but they're trying to do something so very important.
Mm-hmm.
When you're having to talk him through it, it's like,
But that was the whole thing with Rogue One, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that they did it because it explains how dire of a suicide mission it was.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
I got that.
it's like it was rumored. It was always rumored that Rogue One never existed, and they were lucky to get what they get. But those who knew what they did knew that they were going to go in there probably not coming home. They knew that they were not coming home.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the young girl who was the lead actress in this, first thing I had seen her as was a version of Northanger Abbey. She was in a Jane Austen drama, and having if you'd seen her very young in that role, you would have never. I thought the casting was just so great because watching her on Masterpiece Theater in a Jane Austen pick, I would have never pictured her in that role. You just would. The two characters she plays are on such opposite ends of the spectrum. I would have never thought it possible. And when I first saw her, it's like, oh please. And then I started watching it because we were in the theater, and it's like, okay, I want to see how she gets through this journey, because this is like watching one of the actresses from Dalton Abbey,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly thrown in the gritty side of the rebellion. But it's like, okay, but then it's like, okay, what do you expect from a British actress? An American actress may have fallen flat on her face,
Mm-hmm.
but she was so up to it, and by the middle of the film, I was like, Jane who? Shut up.
She
Give
she
me
was
more
meant for this
popcorn.
role. She was meant for this role because every domino that fell against her, she eventually, for some reason, she portrayed it well enough where nothing was going to stop her from succeeding.
Her level of determination, just and because what's going to happen, you know, it just breaks your heart that much more, because she has already had this really okay, spoilers, people, all right, if you have not seen this, I don't know what to tell you.
Rogue One has been out long enough. We're not going to worry about
Mm-hmm.
spoilers. It's
But
been out long enough.
she has already had such a hard situation. Her mother gets killed, you know. She's told to run to this space, and she's got to hide underground, and this guy comes and finds her, and it's not exactly like she had the best growing up under him.
No, she had to live with
Considering,
Forrest Whitaker.
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because Forrest Whitaker is a great director of women. something that a lot of people don't get. Forrest Whitaker, when it comes to directing women, he is, you know, um,
Hmm.
but in
I'm not a fan of Forrest. He's made some movies that made me want to choke him.
okay, you know what? Me and you,
No,
we're
no, no,
gonna
no,
have
no,
to
no.
agree to
But he has a
disagree.
point. He has a point. When he played Idi Amin, I do want to choke him for that.
Okay, okay, but I'm thinking about what this child went through,
Hmm.
and she is angry, she is broken, and she ends up in prison. She's in, and
Mm,
imperial prisons aren't nice places in any. There's just you go into an imprison. It's not you somebody in jail and somebody will get you out. She was in prison. This child had to fight to survive. You know, and she finally gets out through this situation, but her life doesn't get any easier.
mm,
And now, instead of being able to try to find some place to make a what she can of a life for herself, she has to take that freedom and she literally has to give it up.
mhm,
She makes that ultimate sacrifice. She has been spending all that time in an imperial slave ship, basically, you know, and she gets what 5 seconds with her dad,
mhm.
and then boom,
No.
and then it's like, okay, all right, you lost your dad, it's really crappy, but there's this thing that has to happen. If you don't do it, everybody's losing their dad, not to mention everybody's losing. And so she
And
has to make things there is no easy choice for her. Every what bits of childhood she has through this journey get taken away from her. Whatever
and,
Forrest Whitaker did or didn't do, she has to lose him.
Mhm.
and
She
to me,
gets her
that was the
dad, and then
part of
she has, no matter it's like she has the minute she gets a hold of some part of her life, it's like, oh, does that matter to you? It's just
but, but that's the true.
I cried
That
because
was the
as a
true beginning of
woman,
our hero's journey, though.
yeah, I mean, but it's and like I said, it just tore the heart out of me
It,
because
it,
as a
it,
mother, I'm like, I wanted to just, hold her and go, it's okay. I'm gonna go climb. I can't climb, but
I,
I can flex arm hang. I can do that. And you go get off the planet.
I,
I wanted, there was this part of me was like, can she get off? Let her and Andrew make it. Okay, I know what's going to happen, but just let them make it. Let them make it. Let them make it. And then
I,
it's like, nope, sorry, we can't tell this story no other way than the parameters in which the story has already been told. But you have to understand, this is when you're fighting this type of war. These are the
Mm,
sacrifices that get made. These are the losses.
well, there's a couple of things that you know. I'm trying not to do revisionist history on it, but that point that you made here, that segment where she loses her father, I'm up here. It's like, okay, now this is beginning to make sense because she has nothing to lose at this point. She
True.
she was handpicked to go on this suicide mission with the father being dead. She has nothing to come back to. My whole thing at that point was, what if she completely loses it on this mission? How safe is everybody else? Because she was their ace in the hole, and she was just nowhere near like 100% in her right mind going into that mission. And then as everything was going on, she kept losing members of her team left and right and left and right. And then the very end, if what threw me for the loop, because she had two options. She could she could broadcast, and if she broadcast those plans, there was no way that she could be rescued, or she could get rescued and hope that there would be some type of way that she could evade the forces long enough to get the message to them, one or
Mhm.
the other. But in doing the second part, she has to kill the only person that she trusts.
Yeah.
And it was like, what it's like, what do you do for ultimate victory at that point? That's the catch 22 that she couldn't deal with, because again, she has nothing to lose. She doesn't value herself enough for self-preservation, but at the same time she only has the mission.
Yeah.
How do you see the mission completely out? And we got our answer, because they have to adhere to history. Because think about
Mhm.
it, what if she decided to, I'm going to save myself,
Yeah. What did she decide?
beat,
Hey,
beat
screw
this
this.
dude,
If
beat
I
this
get
dude
off
and
this planet,
escape.
I can find some planetoid somewhere where I can live out the last of my days.
I can
And
still
by
get everything to him and live the rest of my days out.
yeah, but it was like, but the thing is, I considering how fast Vader was up their butts. There's no way she could have, even if she had made that decision, there's no way she'd have survived it. And there's a good chance that the mission critical data would not have made it to the hands that it needed. There's just
Right.
it could have just gone, it could have gone pear shaped so easily. It was one of those things where necessity demanded
To
that
for her to
choice
broadcast it the way that they originally planned.
and make that choice, because it was like they Leia got it, and she just barely got the information into R2
Mm-hmm.
before Vader was already there. Those men died
Mhm.
so to buy her the seconds to give her, to put implant that information in R2, give a quick message to Kenobi, and then shoot them out and then shoot them out the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Put them in an escape hatch, because there
and,
wasn't
and
even
leaving
room for
and
her.
leaving her to die on the planet.
Yeah, because there was no room for Leia. Leia could
Mm-hmm.
have been killed. There was no room for her in the pod she put the droids in. It was just big enough to take R2 and C3PO. So she needed to have C3PO because R2 needed someone who could translate. You kind of needed. I mean, you needed that.
And it was
So
inconspicuous too, because okay, it's part of standard protocol
Mhm.
for protocol droids and whatever diplomats and everything who would have escaped to
Mhm.
leave. So when they scanned it and said saw two droids, it's like, oh, there's nothing
it's
there.
it's it's nothing here to be concerned about,
Mhm.
you know. But if she had not been there and they knew she had been aboard the ship and she might have been in that capsule, they'd have blasted it and
Mm-hmm.
everything would have been lost. So Leia, yeah, girl makes a sacrifice, and Leia's like, well, if it comes down to it, then what the hell? I don't, she understands, both these women understand the mission, and they're both willing to make that choice. It's the choice you and I were trained for.
Yep. Here's the other thing, and this is why I have respect for that one general, that red-headed general. That was her plan for the very beginning, that nobody had faith in, and she was like, "Nope, it's going to work. I know it's going to work because I handpicked everybody, and I know how everybody is going to operate."
Well, you know who that redheaded chick is?
Uh-uh.
In the Andor series, it's not the same they made her, they did a little CGI so she looked like the actress from the first Star Wars film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the lady she's the character that's now being portrayed in Andor. The wealthy woman who's helping, she's that senator
Mm-hmm.
who's funding the rebellion on the down low. So it's to be interesting when we get to that point where she's had to leave, because right now on Andor, she's still living the high life, and they have the family estates, but that's her.
Isn't it Mon Mothma?
It's this woman who's the senator. She's the one that when they originally, and she's giving, and she says Minnie Bop, and she makes that stop, and she and in the original film, and she's like,
Mm,
yeah, the Bothan spies gave us this, and she's like Minnie Bop, and she makes that stop as if it hit her personally.
mm.
Minnie Bothans died
Yeah,
to
that's
bring us this information, the original actress. And then in Rogue One, they had another actress that they made up to look with a little CGI
mm,
to look like her.
mm,
If you look at the woman in Andor and then look at how those women are portrayed, that is that character.
okay.
She is now that character. We're seeing how she got from this cosseted, um,
To general.
Mm,
very wealthy to now she's a general in the resistance. So it's not just his journey, it's also her journey, because it sees her
mm,
having to walk away from that, her feelings and her determination put her in a position where, just like Leia and the rest, she has to make that decision. I can either stay in my life of comfort and let
Not just
everything else fall around me, or I'm going to have to take this step.
not
And
just Leia, also Organa too.
mhm,
King Organa, because King Organa was up here was against Leia being a part of this mission too
yes,
in Rogue One until
mhm,
he understood exactly what she was laying out. And it was like, oh, I see. So, because
and
he
he goes,
originally
I
thought that
trust.
Leia was going to be with the original batch. And it's like, no,
mhm,
she comes later. She's going to be the one that if we
Because they
need somebody
asked
to
him about her.
intercept it, she will be the one that
They
intercepts.
asked Jimmy Smits, who plays her father,
Mhm.
at that time, and he's like, I would trust her with my life. Because there's like,
mhm,
can we trust her? It's like, I would trust her with my life.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, so it's interesting when I look at the women in Star Wars, because if you think about all these women, no matter which side of this discussion they're on, these are not the little help me.
mhm,
These are women who are putting their lives on the line, who are stepping forward with their eyes open and going, I'm going, at the very least, I'm going to get bloodied. I may not get dead, but I'm definitely not coming out of this unscathed. And I find that really interesting, because I'm thinking of the generation of young women, you know, who are now coming up and seeing this,
mhm.
and what this will do for them. As a little girl seeing Nichelle Nichols on the Enterprise. Yes, she was subordinate to Kirk, but she was equal to her fellow officers.
Mhm.
They didn't treat her like, oh yeah, go get me some coffee and make a phone call.
No,
You
Yeah.
know,
that was Nurse such and such. That was who he was.
that was Yeoman
The one, the
Rand.
one, the one that always helped Dr. McCoy. She was the one like,
Oh
go
yes,
get the coffee, go
Christine.
give me this. Yes.
That was
Now, I have to
Christine.
admit, I'm also a little bit salty at Rogue One because when I first heard the announcement of the movie, I thought it was going to be about Rogue Squadron, and
Mm-mm.
Oh,
I was really excited.
Mm-mm.
oh, you
Yeah,
thought it was gonna be before Luke joined the squadron. Here are the
yeah.
dudes that he fights with. Oh, I am so
Mm.
sorry.
And then when I realized what it was, I was kind of mad. I'm not
I'm
going to lie. So,
I am so sorry. I am
I thought you did.
I don't work for Lucas, but
mm,
I will apologize as the generation who grew up on that.
yes.
You know, and I have to say to this generation, children, you can like Star Wars and Star Trek. You can. It's okay. They are both great in their own ways. You don't have to go, well, you have to like. No, you can like DC and Marvel. You can like Star Wars and
Hey, now.
Star Trek. You can like the folks in Westeros and the folks in Middle Earth. It don't matter. Love them both. Love it all. And if they don't like it, tell them your auntie Moo said, I will whoop ass if somebody gets up and got a problem with that. Tell them come find me at the next C2E2. And when they're being carried out and what's left of them in a stretcher, maybe they will learn that lesson.
I
Okay,
will
that
say
uh,
I'll be okay with most of this stuff, but by the time I die, if I do not get a animated or a live action version of the Yuuzhan Vong in my Star Wars, I'm gonna be really mad.
we can start writing Disney.
Okay.
We have to, the thing is Lucas is not as involved directly in what's going on in his universe. Um, and the thing is with Disney, just like with Marvel, you have at least 100 execs all second guessing each other, trying to stab each other in the back and second guess the boss.
Mm.
You've got to jump, when just to get something halfway decent, you got a crap ton of hurdles you've got to jump through, because that's just how they work now.
I'm hoping they'll run through enough of their own quote unquote original ideas. They'll just start copying the extended universe novels word for word, and I'll be happy. So
and
That's what I'm hoping
well,
to a certain degree.
part
To
of
keep
that will
everybody
be,
happy.
you still, it comes under Star Wars, but you also, it's like the splinter of the mind's eye. You still have to go to that writer,
mm-hmm.
because it's Lucas's IP, but so and so wrote the book. So
Disney
if you're
owns
smart, they will pull in the writers and say, "Hey, we want to adapt this for a series, a mini series, whatever. Can you sit down and work with us on this?"
Well, they did it with Timothy Zahn for to get Thrawn into
Mhm.
Rebels and into Ahsoka. So, I
Mhm.
mean, and plus Disney owns 3/4 of the planet anyway. They probably own these people, so they can just tell them to do
Well,
it.
you say 3/4 of the planet. I consider it 3/4 of all media.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah, no,
They
I'm
own three
pretty
quarters of
sure
all media.
I'm pretty sure they own at least 3/4 of the Pacific Ocean. So just let them do their thing. But no, I I've gone back and refound my love for Star Wars through the extended universe more than through the cinematic universe. So I'm really hoping I'll get to see some of that at some point on there. And it's starting to happen. I never thought I'd see Grand Admiral Thrawn on TV, and I'm optimistic it'll
That made
eventually.
me happy. That made me happy.
Yeah.
And
I
then
will.
this and then to see the witches and then
Mhm.
going into the actual history of the
And
Force.
That was cool.
if I could just get Mara Jade for a little while.
See, you and me are of the same mindset. I could deal without Dash Rendar. I could deal
Mhm.
without it. But we need Mara Jade in the relationship between her and Luke.
Yeah.
And that would explain the majority of the missing parts of what is in between the books and the cinematic universe. And
Mhm.
everything comes to a full circle and everybody can be happy for a
Yeah.
change. And that's the only reason why I don't like Star Wars, because I get sick and tired of this fandom always picking and choosing. Oh, the books were better, the movies were better. The books, it's like book said this, but the movie said this. It's like, don't matter. It's all the same topic. Like it for what it is.
Mhm.
Because you're going to
Yeah.
get people like
And
me
quit
starting
crapping
hating
on John
your favorite
Boyega.
thing.
Quit crapping on John.
And I had Star Wars will always have a special place in my heart because I I can clearly remember seeing all three of the original movies in the theaters with my mom, even though I was like itty bitty, and I'm sure that it wasn't the first. I know it wasn't the first release of A New Hope I saw, but I saw all three of them in theaters with her, and before she passed, I was able to take her and my kids to the sequel trilogies,
Okay.
and that
You mean
so
prequels?
no, the sequel trilogy, because my mom, I didn't have kids when I was in high school. I'm not that old. No, all
They
the
did
newer ones.
re-release the prequels now. Don't get me wrong. They did re-release the prequels.
They did, but no, I didn't see those with mom. Mama didn't.
Okay.
Mama was like me; she didn't care for Jar Jar, so we didn't. We don't.
Okay.
But no, I got this with Ray, and and because I have all daughters, it was, even though I know a lot of people were upset about everything with this, that, and the other with it, my daughters got to see a strong, independent female Jedi
Yes.
sitting there with their grandmother before she passed away. So If
and
nothing else, that was enough for me with the sequel trilogy. The rest of it was whatever.
I was happy for that. I was happy for. I loved John Boyega. Or Bodega. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
that's
Boyega.
him.
Um, he got crapped on by a
Mhm.
lot of the bros in the fandom, which I think was really evil.
It was harsh, just
It,
like
it, it was harsh, and he hadn't worked. He quit working sci-fi for a while because he couldn't deal with the fandom anymore. He had said, "I'm done. I will not come back to anything Star Wars." And a lot of what happened with his character, he had little to no control over. He was an actor doing a job,
Mm-hmm.
and and they weren't taking notes from him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is stupid because I saw Rock the Block, which is a movie. It was an English sci-fi horror movie
Mm-hmm.
that he did with girlfriend who was the female doctor
Yes.
early on in their careers, and I thought they worked so well together. It's like, oh, you guys have to work. I have to write something so y'all can do something together. But I just felt like, sorry, and I get it. There are a lot of people who were really upset because the Star Wars universe is no longer white folks in the front, and the rest of us are just, we're in, we're the backup crew. It's like, yeah, it ain't just about dudes, and it ain't just about white dudes. There are other, the universe is bigger than your ego, and you got to accept that.
I'm
And the universe should reflect everything that's out there. So, I just,
I'm sorry. I had a flashback to the Kevin Smith movie Chasing Amy when they were talking
oh,
about Lando got to fly the Millennium Falcon.
it was his ship first.
that was the
Did
whole
nobody?
thing.
It was his ship. He got what was it?
He
He
lost.
got
He lost
cheated.
it in a game. He lost it in a game with what?
They
The
Yeah,
box or
Softball.
poker or
whatever it is.
something.
The box or
Yeah,
whatever it
Their
was.
version of poker.
Yeah.
And
it,
there's a
it was his ship first.
yeah,
It
and
was his ship first, and a lot of people don't get that, and it's like, where were you when that part of the movie, when they had that in the dialogue?
Again, the whole thing is like, the Kessel Run. The whole thing about the Kessel Run was all about how Han got the Millennium Falcon from Lando. All of it was about that.
it's really funny. It was from Dark Horse. It's a series, Star Wars Tales or Tales of the Jedi.
Something like that.
Yeah,
In one of the backups, they it was a spoof, but it was how it was. What is the Kessel Run? And it was all spoof because they later on in one of the more serious stories they explained what it really was, but it was a spoof. Lando and a bunch of his other gambling buddies made up the story of the Kessel Run to tell Han, and it was basically just a wild goose chase through the sector of space
oh no.
to get all their money back that they lost to him playing cards.
Oh, that's just evil. I mean, it's good, but it is evil.
I need to probably find that here. But getting back to the bigger thing, the thing that I dislike about the sequels, because I haven't watched the third one, Rise of Skywalker. I haven't watched that one yet. Only because of what they did after what was the second one that came out?
The Last Skywalker.
No, yeah, the Last Skywalker. It
The
might
Last
be the Last
Jedi.
Skywalker. Huh?
The Last
Jedi.
Jedi.
The
There's
Last
the Last
Jedi.
Jedi, and the third one was the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, what they did in the Last Jedi with dealing with Finn and Rose, because that was the story arc that they could have ran parallel to what was going on with Rey and Kylo.
Yeah.
And when they started to blackball Rose, I lost faith, because people don't realize that Finn, out of all of the Star Wars history, was one of the few troopers that was actually force attuned.
Yes.
Not too many people could pick up a lightsaber and wield it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then his so-called supervisor kept the eye on him because I believe, and I still call the supervisor a she because it always had a female voice, but everybody kept saying, no, it's a guy. I was like,
no, it's a woman because what's her name who played Brienne of Targ in Game of Thrones?
Played the character.
Played that, and there were scenes that she had to shoot in the armor. They had to make the armor to fit her.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were scenes where they shot
We
where
talk
they
about
had
the
to do
six
comparable
five
shots.
that had the claymore in Game of Thrones, and if she willed that claymore, you were dead. But again, that character knew the potential of Finn beyond a janitor.
I
Was
always
always
wondered
on
if she
his
kind of,
ass because he wasn't warlike. He was highly intelligent. He could sense certain things going on, but he was not a battlefield trooper. One-on-one combat, you do not want to see Finn. Finn will mess you up.
yeah.
And she knew that. And then Rose discovered it. And Rose gave Finn purpose. It's like, I don't care what everybody else thinks. I don't care if you was a janitor and everything. People are going to see you as the hero.
No,
be the hero that you're meant to be.
He wasn't a janitor because in the first movie he was with
He
the
said
troops
he was
that
a
were supposed to.
janitor.
But
He was a maintenance man.
But when we first see him, and because
He was on the battlefield for the first time.
And he was,
and he took his helmet off. He couldn't
open
breathe.
Fire on what's his name and those people, and that's when he start hitting with the force, and he can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
He can't fire on them.
They needed to do a better job of explaining that in the movie,
and they didn't.
Because I liked the Finn character, but they didn't do enough of a job to explain why he freaked out on the battlefield. And being raised in the South around people who were brainwashed from birth, then when he made the line of "I was raised from the time I was a baby to do this," I was like, well, then you wouldn't have freaked out like that on the battlefield. So they needed to explain why more, because that kind of took him out of my character for me. I was like, I can't. That doesn't make any sense. They didn't do a good
he
job
tried to defend Ray and picked up the lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
The saber would have not worked, and if
he
did try and he did power it on, he wouldn't be able to wield it competently to defend against a Kylo Ren. He would have been dead.
I was about to say he'd have done more damage to himself
than
he would have done to anybody else. The fact that he was able to get that thing on and at least be able to take some defensive measures.
Now let's not get too crazy. Now we're talking about Kylo Ren here. I'm pretty sure my 7-year-old could kick his ass with a lightsaber.
Again, no. This is where I kind of disagree with you. You have somebody that's being trained by Luke.
Fellow Marine. We're gonna have to check you on that because he's a fellow Marine. I gotta defend him until I find out he was shooting old grannies and eating them. I gotta defend it.
Not him.
I'm talking about Kylo was trained by Luke.
That's great.
I don't care. He had other cards up his sleeve. Technically, Kylo did not need to go single weapon combat versus him to beat Finn. I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying about he was trained by Luke. I have choked out people that are trained by Hoist Gracie. That doesn't mean anything.
That's true too. But again, that's also
Ben Solo
as a warrior see opportunity to do so.
Ben Solo was the worst part of those movies. Every time he came on the screen, I wanted to go get popcorn or something. I'm just like, no. And again, it might be because I'm ruined because I read a lot of the extended universe, and the Solo kids were awesome. Mm-hmm. And this little whiny little bitch on the screen, when he came on there and took his helmet off, I screamed out loud, "Put your mask back on." My wife told me to shut up.
No, I wouldn't say put your mask back on, but I did get tired of. I want my grandpa. Grandpa was the greatest of all time. I'm going to be like my grandpa. I was like, stop that.
I'm going to hug this rusted ass helmet that's older than me. I'm just like, come on now.
Really?
I just,
Yeah, you did kind of. It's like even my youngest was sitting there going, "You need therapy."
and and also in the same vein, I was really upset because after the first of the sequel movies, I was so hoping that whatever his name Snoke was an actual giant. I was like, please be a giant. That would be so awesome. And then he was just this regular old withered dude. I'm like, man, because I could have fantasized a battle between him and Yoda, the big and the small, and they ruined it.
And no, that was
Well,
the other thing that ruined it too. That last conversation between Luke and Yoda, that
Mm,
ruined it for me too.
mm-hmm.
okay.
Because Yoda actually made sense. However, I would have never destroyed those books.
Mm-hmm.
I would have hit them. I would have buried them.
Yeah.
Maybe only reason is because it would make what happened in Ahsoka even more powerful
Mm-hmm.
about them not knowing everything that the Jedi Council did not know about everything or did not let people know about every last bit of their history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he destroyed the books. It's like, okay, they're on their own. They're about to, the so-called or this first order and our old Jedi order. The old Jedi order is no longer around, and this new first order can have free reign. It's like, no, that's not what it is.
Mm-mm.
Let people be able to backtrack and find out what the history really is. Hide those books, or just keep them on the plane and just don't mention them to anybody. Let it be buried treasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't. I the one thing that I did like about the First Order, um, and it's interesting because it's the guy who plays the eldest of the Weasley brothers, Bill Weasley, who his dad played Mad Eye Moody
Mm.
in the Harry Potter films, and then he
Okay.
played Bill Weasley. And it's like,
Mm.
oh, there's a Harry Potter connection in the Star Wars universe. But the that whole, you know, any minute I expected either he or Kylo to stop away going, Mama liked me best. Because that was kind of what their dynamic was. If you think about their dynamic, these
Mm.
two men who are supposed to be in charge, but they can't agree.
Mm-hmm.
And the one is rightly looking at the other going, you're just an emotional child. You're just an emotional child. And there were times I was looking at him going, you gonna kill him, aren't you? You gonna find a way to kick his ass out of airlock. Because you were just done with this. I could just see it. You were just so done with this Weasley boy.
And, and here's the other thing that made me angry. We had to wait to the eighth movie before Leia's used any type of force power.
Mm-hmm.
Any immediate, for if you read the book, I had
If you
read
read the
it.
book, you know that she used it way before then.
I was
Mm-hmm.
about to say she was using because she wasn't trained. She didn't get any of the training the way Luke did. But
Right.
she and because I would say Luke was a Jedi, Leia was like the chick with the glasses, force sensitive,
Mm.
perhaps a bit of a force operative. But I keep thinking because in that last movie he does say that he was training Leia, but he kind of realized that she was never going to make a Jedi.
No, she was never going to be a knight.
She would
Mm.
never,
She
yeah,
would never be a knight.
she
She
would
would.
never make a knight. But I think, um, but she did have force ability because I remember reading a novelization of Return of the Jedi, and there were quite a few, there were quite a few things that she had to do in order to survive that situation with Jabba.
Mm.
That they in
Mm.
the book they talk about. She had to
Mm.
where she has to literally close when she's got it. He's making her drink from his cup, and it talks about how she closes. She had to close her mind and open her mouth. And
Mm.
there were a couple of situations where she had to kind of mentally shut off parts of herself. And then of course the point when she finally got to kill Jabba, and what it took for that sort of, because it wasn't just about her strength. She had to focus her mind
Mm-hmm.
on the pool and stuff. And so the book covers a lot of stuff that they don't make as clear in the movie.
Did you ever read the book Shadows of the Empire?
That one, no. I think I may have it. The only book I read from that series of books was one of the first ones that came out that was called Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shadows of the Empire takes place between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
And it doesn't really outright, because I haven't read it, I think, since it came out. It doesn't really outright say Leia is using the Force, but the main villain in that book, she was able to resist his pheromone induced whatever because of her connection to the Force.
That was why she was able to, when Vader in the first movie, and the way Carrie wanted that scene shot was, you see, because she's in there and you see this thing coming in and it's got the needles in there. She wanted a scene of her floating upside down, covered in, her dress dirty, covered in bruises, her hair a mess. And Lucas like, oh no, we can't do that. And it's like, why? It would have made a great shot, to show that, no, the princess isn't going to run through this with perfect hair, Instead, he has this conversation with Christopher. Was it Christopher Lee's character? No, it's not Christopher Lee. It's the other guy's character, where they're having that discussion and he's talking about, somehow she resisted.
Why are you getting where are you getting Count Dooku from?
No, the other Christopher Lee, and I keep forgetting his name. They were the rocks on which the House of Hammer.
It was the character in the movie was Grand Admiral Tarkin.
Yes.
My favorite character of that era, Tarkin.
Yeah.
Tarkin, who's like, hey.
But the guy who played him, Christopher Lee and him used to play. They did a crap ton of Dracula, Frankenstein, and what movies, switching out. Sometimes Christopher Lee would be Dracula and this guy would be Van Helsing, and then they switch, and this guy would be Dracula and Christopher Lee would be
Christopher Lee.
Peter Cushing.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, Peter Cushing, yeah.
Old brain, and I have not bet it yet.
Yeah. Christopher Lee has the most unintentionally funny line in a horror movie ever when he was in The Howling Part 2. And he's sitting there explaining how this one chick is she is a pure werewolf. Silver will not work on her, only titanium. And the look on his face, he knows that he's just getting paid, and it is so.
Yeah, you can see it. It's like you can see he's literally calculating how soon it'll take for that check to clear the bank.
Yeah,
so he can go do whatever it is he's going to do, and it's like, I used to assassinate people in World War II. Sneak up behind people and assassinate them just so I can do this shit on camera. There are movies he's done with like this, there's that look of like, what I have to do for a paycheck.
Yeah, he said one time, because he was through all the prequels and Lord of the Rings and all that, he goes, there was a period of time where I was acting in front of a green screen for so long, I didn't even know what movie I was doing.
There we go. Yo, here, just, Sir Christopher, just read these lines, okay? It's like, okay, do the lines. Where's my check?
Yep.
Here you go. It's like, you need me anymore? No? Okay. Call the wife. I'll meet you on the Riviera. I just got to cash the check, okay?
But you're right. But you're right. Peter Cushing, to me, one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, Grand Admiral Tarkin. The man who understood, you know what? everybody thinks this Force thing is nothing but mumbo jumbo, but no, it's real. However, I respect it, but I don't respect it. And I'm going to find out. I want to find out how we can deal with it
Mhm.
if we need to deal with Vader. And
Yeah.
he knew how to work Vader. He knew how to work Vader.
And he was the only one to whom, outside of the Emperor, that Vader had any sort of deference to.
Well, that was a really smart thing they did in the Clone Wars. They introduced him in the Clone Wars, and he was already, you know, even before there was such a thing, he was pro Empire, and it was so obvious. He was like, I don't care for these Jedi people. And he planted a lot of the seeds on the episodes where he was with Anakin. He planted the seeds for leading him in that way of thinking, which wasn't that hard because it was Anakin, but
He reinforced
yeah.
what Palpatine was telling him.
And I thought that was a really good little thing they did with the show to show why he was so held in such regard to Vader in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I love all of you guys, but my
it's time to go because we're
10-year-old
almost at
keeps
3
looking at
hours.
me, and I need a cheeseburger. So
I
I
need
know you
two
need a
Polishes
cheeseburger.
with chili and cheese.
Are they still open? Because it's about to be 10 o'clock. We're
I've
going on
got
for 3
I
hours.
got Polishes here at home that I'm gonna heat up along with the chili and put them on bread with cheese.
Oh, okay. Then you're good.
Yes, but I need to make them
Okay.
so that I can go in my room and have me some Polishes with chili and cheese.
And you're gonna be like to everybody else, be like, stand back. It's
Oh,
Polish is coming through.
it's like you can die if you want to, you idiot puppet. You get, they know, don't get between Mama and her dinner. Because Mama still has teeth and she'll bite you. So
why are you making me think about what I saw on the Channel 9 morning news where they were going back through all the vintage YouTube viral videos? It's like, Charlie, you bit me.
I will try not to do that again. But yeah, I need to go eat because it's almost 10 o'clock. And
All right,
I
so-
also need to get some sleep because I have to get up and try to
Oh, that
redo this
reminds
book.
me. That reminds me. I do have to go into the office tomorrow morning. One of the few days I have to go into the office because I have to get my new ID badge and everything. So,
You want me to go in your place?
nope, you can't.
Dang it.
But there you go.
Okay. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for hanging with us. I know it's a bit. But we love you. And it's, if it wasn't for you guys, there'd be no reason for us to be here. So thank you. And come back. I'm Elaine. YouTube.com/Elaine Haygood, capital E, capital H. I love you to death. They like you too. They don't love you as much as I do, though, because, just saying. Okay? Bye!
And there's Cliff.
I don't have anything to plug. I'm still in Olive Branch, but I am going to let you guys know what Joe and Elaine have not told you is we are trying to sneak in a 6.5-hour show without telling you, and we're almost there. So just be prepared when it happens.
Oh yeah, don't let none of us have anything to do on a Friday. It will happen. It won't even be a second thought. We'd be like, hey, did you look at the time? It's been 6 hours.
So it's because we enjoy your company as much as our own company. So we'll see you next time.
And that brings me to mention our sponsor for this show here, which is Jeffrey Hayes from Plasma Fire Graphics. If you need excellent looking covers for your comic or your novel, Jeffrey Hayes is the guy that you want to hit up here. And if you don't believe me, take a gander at this little video right here.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now, it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasmafire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasmafire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
And there you have it. If you like what you see, hit Jeffrey Hayes up at plasmafiregraphics.com. As far as me, I will be back here Saturday for another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher, where I believe the topic is going to be, are we to blame for the high prices on comic books? Well, we being collectors. But that's a discussion for then. So until next Thursday, I have been Joe D. McPhee here for Comic Book Spectrum. As I always say, live life, grow, and be well. And as our founder always reiterates here, I don't care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome here. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your Thursday here and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.